The tale opens with our main character. He wakes up in a hospital emergency ward, hovering between life and death. A mechanical engineer by trade, he pushed himself beyond his limits until a stroke struck him down and left him in a dire state. Hardship followed him from childhood, as his parents passed away shortly after his birth, and he grew up without a family. After finishing school, he devoted 2 decades to a company that treated him miserably, earning pitiful wages. And he stayed single because no woman wanted to be with someone he saw as poor and insignificant. Burdened by these thoughts, he chooses to surrender and stop resisting. He shuts his eyes and slips away. Doctors and nurses scramble desperately, trying to revive him. His eyes open again. He is no longer in the ward, but inside a lavish chamber glittering with treasures that nearly dazzle him blind. He assumes he is still hospitalized and panics at the idea of spending his life paying off treatment in such an extravagant place. Out of nowhere, a translucent status screen materializes before him. It greets him and announces his arrival on the magical continent of Eldria. He is utterly baffled by the sudden turn of events. Gradually, however, clarity returns to his mind. Looking into a mirror, he sees a completely different face, a handsome young man with blonde hair flowing to his neck, and wonders why his appearance has changed so drastically. After a week, he finally adjusts and begins to understand his situation. His death in the hospital led to his rebirth in this realm as Ryan Edgar. Ryan happens to be the 3rd child of Grand Duke Alderian Edgar, with 1 older brother and 1 sister. He soon learns that Ryan was the pampered child of the household. Everyone in the family dotes on him endlessly. They constantly shower him with gifts and food, all to keep the youngest member of the family happy and at ease. Immersed in comfort, Ryan begins to feel this new life is compensation for his suffering before. Eldria is a land where magic powers nearly every aspect of existence. Caradorial Empire stands as the largest human dominion on the continent. Other races such as elves and dwarves also inhabit this world alongside humans. The Edgar House rules roughly 300,000 square kilometers, with about 1 million subjects under its banner. As a noble heir, he is assigned a personal maid to attend to him. Ryan concludes that this blissful existence is a reward for the misery of his former life. While enjoying tea, his maid informs him that his father wishes to see him. Soon after, he steps into his father's private chamber. He respectfully bows before the Grand Duke. The Duke asks whether he understands the reason for being called. Ryan answers honestly that he has no idea, as he cannot read thoughts. His father explains that Ryan is now old enough to govern land, and asks which territory he intends to claim. The announcement stuns Ryan, who had never considered ruling any domain. The Duke rises and gestures to a massive map, pointing out that Ryan's future land lies in the northwest. He notes that while the area is relatively secure due to few magicians, it struggles severely with food production. He adds that although their current holdings are stable, the Empire's long-term outlook is bleak. Ryan nods in agreement. The imperial family is weakening under the weight of corruption and intrigue. Disputes among the Empire's nobles are growing increasingly frequent. Ryan feels compelled to safeguard the family that now belongs to him. Since his rebirth, he has experienced nothing but kindness and warmth. Noticing Ryan's distant gaze, his father worries he is overwhelming him and advises him not to rush his decision. Ryan interrupts to ask whether securing a stable food supply could transform the region. His father replies cautiously that enthusiasm alone cannot fix famine, insisting that only gradual and practical measures can solve it, while privately doubting Ryan's understanding. Ryan, however, trusts not in passion, but in the knowledge drawn from humanity's industrial advancements. Smiling confidently, he tells his father to entrust the food crisis to him. Aniclimax City lies at the western edge of Alderian's lands, bordering the Grand Duke of Sauron to the north, Elven territory to the west, and the vast ocean to the south. Positioned where 3 powers converge, the city frequently becomes a battleground. Years of warfare have reduced once rich soil to wasteland and driven down its population. During the journey, Ryan studies every document available about the city. He realizes that industrialization demands abundant workers, yet the city sorely lacks manpower. Therefore, increasing the population becomes his immediate objective. To his surprise, he discovers he possesses a unique power. The system grants him the ability to scan individuals. Through it, he can view a person's attributes and statistics. He has already tested this skill on his own family members. From this, he gains a rough grasp of how people in this world are evaluated. He resolves to recruit gifted individuals once he reaches his domain. His maid accompanies him inside the carriage. She has been ordered by the Duke to supervise him and prevent mischief in his new land. Secretly, the red-haired maid hopes Ryan will act sensibly there. At the estate in Aniclimax City, the acting city lord has been informed that Ryan will arrive that day. One corrupt official asks whether they should act first against the newcomer. He has heard that the Duke treasures his youngest son dearly. The masked accomplice advises patience, suggesting they wait for orders from their superior. The noble fears Ryan might uncover embezzlement and tax manipulation. The masked man dismisses the concern, claiming Ryan knows nothing of accounting and proposing they present fabricated ledgers to mislead him. With Ryan's arrival imminent, the masked figure tells the Lord to leave so he can greet the heir himself. In truth, the masked man harbors resentment toward Ryan's father and seeks revenge. Before long, Ryan and his maid Lee reach the outskirts of the city. He notices the soil is rich yet underused due to sparse inhabitants and asks Lee to show him a regional map. She complies, and after studying it for several minutes, Ryan envisions constructing a canal to link the land to the southern port. His thoughts are interrupted by a young girl pleading with her father to quit gambling. She explains that the money he holds is meant for her mother's medical care. Father stubbornly insists on betting it, convinced luck is finally on his side. In his frustration, he raises his hand to strike the child. Ryan intervenes and knocks the man away with a single punch. Lee hurries over to make sure Ryan is unharmed. He asks him to warn her before fighting next time so she can ready his protective gear, but Ryan argues it was too sudden for preparation. He instructs Lee to tend to the girl while he deals with the so-called father. Approaching the man, Ryan reprimands him for abusing his daughter. He also condemns him for risking his family's survival by gambling away medical funds. The man cautiously inquires about Ryan's identity. Ryan responds that who he is does not matter. He warns that if he ever returns to the gambling house, he will lose his hands. Terrified, the man flees and swears never to gamble again. Once he is gone, Ryan uses the system to assess the girl's condition. She sobs, saying she would have been helpless if the treatment money had been stolen. Scan reveals her name is Lillian and that she possesses an exceptional talent for farming and harvesting. Ryan is astonished by her rare gift despite her otherwise modest stats. Recognizing her agricultural potential, he decides she must be recruited at once. He invites Lillian to ride in his carriage into town, but she hesitates, worried that her dirty clothes will stain it. Ryan laughs gently and says it is nothing more than wood assembled together, then asks why a gambling den thrives in a region plagued by poverty. Lillian recounts that the previous autumn the Grand Duke of Sorin invaded, costing many soldiers their lives. As if that hardship were insufficient, a massive flood struck in spring, ruining much of the farmland and harvest. As a result, daily life became unbearable for the townsfolk, and even securing a single meal was a struggle. After listening to her account, Ryan heads into the city and decides that conducting a census will reveal how much manpower he actually has. However, his immediate priority is visiting the Lord's residence to check the funds available to him. Ryan asks Lillian if she can point out where the Lord's estate is, and she opens her mouth to answer. Suddenly, the sound of galloping hooves echoes in the distance, a rider cracking a whip. A man shouts for everyone to clear the road at once, insults the crowd, calling them lowly peasants. His horse nearly tramples Ryan in the chaos. Lee shoves Ryan aside just in time, while the rider speeds off without a glance back. He is left fuming with anger. Ryan quickly tells her to calm down, because in her panic, she is practically suffocating him with her chest. Lee straightens herself and anxiously asks whether he is hurt. Ryan reassures her that he is unharmed thanks to her quick reaction. He then turns to Lillian and asks if she recognizes the reckless rider. She explains that he is the young master of the Edwin family. According to her, every gambling house in the city belongs to that family. Ryan smiles at this revelation, realizing that controlling all casinos must make them extremely wealthy. The information eases his concerns about sourcing development capital. Instead of heading to the estate, Ryan asks Lillian to take him straight to a casino. Lillian objects, warning that stepping inside will only cost him all his money. However, Ryan confidently tells her the house stands no chance against him. His bold claim leaves Lillian stunned. He cannot help but wonder how capable he truly is. Soon afterward, they stand before the grandest casino in the city. Ryan is eager to drain it dry to fund his future enterprises. He walks boldly through its doors. Immediately, he sees a man on his knees begging for 10 gold coins while promising impossible returns. Not far away, another gambler shouts triumphantly about a win. The scene disgusts Ryan, who believes gambling prevents people from working honestly. Lillian asks if he is ready to act, noting that soldiers have quietly surrounded the building. However, Ryan tells her to wait, saying he is still expecting someone important. He approaches an attendant, who politely asks which game he prefers. Ryan admits ignorance and asks to be guided to something simple. The attendant gestures for him to follow. They hand him 2 complimentary chips, encouraging him to test his fortune with them. Ryan tosses the chips onto the small bed. Staff cheer him enthusiastically, though their smiles conceal ill intent. The game is sick bow. a dice game popular in East Asia where totals determine small or big outcomes with equal probability. The attendant then apologetically informs Ryan that he has lost. Ryan responds that he feels no disappointment whatsoever. He announces that he is leaving because hunger calls. However, the attendant blocks his path, claiming he must settle his debt before departing. Ryan frowns and asks when exactly he incurred any debt. The attendant insists the borrowed chips require repayment, but Ryan reminds him they were offered for free. The attendant counters that nothing comes without a price in this establishment. Smirking, he states each chip costs 100 gold coins, and with fees Ryan supposedly owes 250. He even suggests leaving the maid behind if Ryan lacks funds. Lillian angrily interrupts, accusing him of blatant lies. She tells Ryan not to believe the fraud, explaining that each token is worth only 1 silver coin. Furious, the attendant scolds her for ruining the scheme and calls for someone to beat her, but before he can finish, Ryan knocks him away with a powerful punch. Standing composed, Ryan coolly asks who granted the man permission to speak. He glances around and notices most gamblers remain fixated on their bets, oblivious to the chaos. Nonetheless, the disturbance soon draws attention. The very person Ryan has been waiting for finally appears, demanding to know who dared cause trouble in his casino. Orders his guards to thrash those responsible. The guards obey without hesitation. He then addresses the onlookers, warning that similar punishment awaits anyone who misbehaves. Lillian secretly blames herself for bringing Ryan and Lee here. Remembering his kindness, she gathers courage to defend him, declaring she will not let them cheat him. The gamblers gasp, certain no one angers owner Vercello without consequences. Vercello turns coldly and asks if she is challenging him. Lillian boldly accuses his casino of destroying countless families and vows not to let him bully her new big brother. Raged, Vercello lunges toward her. She stands frozen, bracing for impact. However, Ryan intercepts and grips Vercello's wrist mid-strike. A quick scan reveals low loyalty at 5 and traits of bloodlust and brutality. Vercello sneers and asks if Ryan disapproves of his methods. Ryan calmly replies that strength rules this world and proposes that whoever prevails will have the last laugh. Vercello bursts into laughter, unable to believe Ryan dares challenge him. With a cold expression, Ryan says his identity is irrelevant, but one fact matters. He claps his hands sharply. Armed soldiers flood into the casino. Ryan stands confidently before them and declares that since he controls the situation, victory is his. Meanwhile, city officials await Ryan anxiously, eager to win his favor. Even Vercello's father hopes to establish friendly ties with him, yet he wonders why his son is nowhere to be seen. Shortly after, Ryan enters the council hall. Officials rush forward to greet him and present gifts. Ryan smiles politely and suggests commencing the meeting. Workers roll in a large board displaying a detailed drawing, confusing the officials. Ryan explains that it is a dam blueprint and stresses its importance. The officials are baffled, unsure what a dam is, with one even guessing it catches fish. Ryan reassures them and asks Lee for the map to clarify his plan. He informs them he has studied the city's terrain carefully. Each year floods from the northern river devastate the area, so constructing a dam would prevent floods and store water for dry seasons. The officials are impressed, realizing this could greatly boost production and that Ryan is far from ordinary. One official then inquires what support he expects from them. Ryan answers frankly that he requires funding. Once they lower their heads, claiming empty coffers, Adrian, Vercello's father, watches skeptically, convinced the young lord is naive to expect contributions. Ryan counters that poverty is no excuse, revealing he confiscated 50,000 gold coins from a casino earlier and notes others remain. This revelation shocks them as they wonder which casino was raided and fear losing their monthly cut. Everyone knows Adrian controls the gambling houses, so they suspect Ryan is courting danger. Adrian himself grows furious, having avoided conflict before, but now that his business is threatened, he intends to crush Ryan. Adrian approaches Ryan and declares that storming the casino violates national law and that Ryan has no authority to break it. Remaining officials quickly echo his words, voicing their agreement and backing Adrian's stance. They argue that gambling houses operate legally and cannot be seized on a whim. Adrian remains convinced that Ryan is an inexperienced youth who lacks the skill to manage people. Ryan responds by reminding them how they pleaded poverty when he requested funds, then exposes their ties to the casinos and announces that he is granting them a final opportunity. They may relinquish the gambling business willingly, or he will strip it from them himself. Adrian counters that the Grand Duke would not tolerate such behavior, and the others warn Ryan to remember his position. Since they insist on discussing laws and regulations, Ryan commands his soldiers to arrest them all, saying he will personally educate them about the law. He also orders the 2 captured casino guards to be brought in. both already bound tightly. Adrian is stunned because those guards are usually inseparable from Vercello. He immediately senses that matters have taken a disastrous turn. Ryan calmly asks Adrian whether he recognizes the pair. Adrian denies any connection and questions why Ryan is interrogating him. Ryan assures him there is nothing to fear, explaining that the men attempted to assassinate him earlier. He adds that they claimed support from a powerful figure within the city. Ryan orders their restraints removed so everyone can see if they look familiar. The officials grow uneasy, aware the two serve Vercello, and that an assassination plot would be devastating. They suspect Adrian will be ruined if the guards reveal the truth. Realizing this, Adrian swiftly pulls out a dagger, tending righteous fury over their attack on the Duke's son. Before anyone can intervene, he brutally slaughters both men. He then turns to Ryan, claiming anger clouded his judgment. He invites Ryan to punish him as he sees fit. Ryan remarks that Adrian's sense of justice is admirable, and Adrian replies that he merely did his duty. Ryan shifts the focus and orders the real culprit to be brought in, curious if more upright nobles are present. Moments later, Vercello is dragged into the chamber. Loudly boasts about his father's status as the most influential noble in town. Adrian's face pales when he realizes his missing son has been captured. Seeing his servants' corpses, Vercello shouts at Ryan, demanding an explanation. He threatens that once freed he will torture Ryan without mercy. Ryan seizes on the threat, pointing out Vercello has confessed murderous intent. Vercello arrogantly insists he is untouchable in the city and that Ryan's fate is sealed. Ryan laughs, remarking that Vercello is remarkably bold. He steps aside, revealing Adrian standing nearby. Vercello smirks, certain his powerful father will protect him, and begins bragging again. His father abruptly shouts for him to kneel and be silent. Confused, Vercello asks what is happening. Adrian ignores him and forces him down onto his knees. Adrian pleads with Ryan, calling his son foolish and begging for mercy while offering all his wealth in exchange for leniency. Vercello recalls his father warning him of Ryan's arrival and advising him to befriend him. Trembling, he asks if Ryan is truly the Duke's son. Ryan dryly notes that the presence of so many soldiers should have made that obvious. Vercello bows deeply and begs forgiveness for his grave mistake. Adrian joins him in supplication, requesting another chance for their family. He even kneels fully, pledging unwavering loyalty to Ryan. Ryan demands that Adrian surrender every illegally acquired asset as the price of protection. Adrian lowers his head in gratitude for this mercy. Then Adrian makes a daring revelation. He claims City Lord Eldrick has contacted outside forces to betray Ryan's father. The officials are stunned, unable to believe such treachery is brewing. Ryan pretends ignorance, angrily accuses Adrian of slander, and orders him and his associates executed for such accusations. Adrian is left speechless. Eldrick, however, feels relieved, convinced Ryan is foolish. Eldrick steps forward and bows respectfully. He declares complete loyalty and denies any rebellious intent. Ryan smiles and says he trusts him. In truth, a status scan reveals Eldrick's greed. Later, seated in his office, Ryan notes the nobles have gathered roughly 100,000 gold, equal to 2 years of taxes. Lee enters carrying his customary black tea. She asks how he will handle Adrian's warning. If Eldrick truly plots rebellion, Ryan could be at risk. Ryan reassures her calmly, saying there is no need for haste. Admits he knows of Eldrick's scheme, but chooses not to expose his cards yet. Lee questions his restraint. Ryan explains he must uncover Eldrick's backers first, because acting blindly could spark chaos while his enemies remain hidden. He wants Eldrick to believe he is oblivious until the full truth emerges. Meanwhile, Eldrick meets with Guildmaster Malcolm. He tells the elderly mage there is no urgency since Ryan is young and eager to impress his father. Malcolm argues that even the Duke shows respect to wizards, so siding with Ryan makes little sense. Secretly, Eldrick is pleased that Ryan has alienated the guild. Malcolm storms off, declaring he will confront Ryan directly. Eldrick smiles, convinced Ryan has provoked the magical guild and exposed himself. Following day, Lee informs Ryan that Malcolm requests an audience. Ryan is puzzled because he does not recognize the name. He steps out to meet Malcolm and discovers he is the guildmaster. Malcolm angrily demands why Ryan insulted the Wizards Guild. Ryan feigns confusion and asks when such an insult occurred. Malcolm presents a recruitment notice Ryan approved that excludes wizards from the dam project. Ryan acknowledges sending the notice, but denies any disrespect. Malcolm insists the exclusion itself is an affront to their honor. Ryan expresses surprise, unaware that wizards sought manual labor roles. Malcolm demands a proper explanation, or he will withdraw all guild support. Before replying, Ryan activates the system to view Malcolm's status. Seeing high loyalty and a thirst for knowledge, Ryan concludes Malcolm has been manipulated. He clarifies it was a misunderstanding and lists 3 reasons for not hiring wizards. First, mana reserves are limited, and may not sustain construction deadlines. Second, employing wizards is costly when the same funds could hire 10 laborers. Third, many guild mages live comfortably while commoners struggle, and as ruler he must prioritize the people. Malcolm counters that magic governs their world, and those without affinity should rank below wizards. Ryan concedes the reality, but says he rejects such inequality. He aims to prove civilians are not inferior to magic users. Malcolm warns him to retract his stance or risk hostility. Ryan firmly tells Malcolm to watch his tone. He threatens to have Lee cut his throat, and she presses a blade to Malcolm's neck to prove it. Malcolm recoils in shock and demands clarification. Ryan states calmly that the law supports him and invites Malcolm to test his patience, promising Lee will act and let the courts decide the outcome. Seeing Ryan's resolve, Malcolm immediately drops his pride and pleads desperately for mercy. Ryan observes that Malcolm's loyalty has not decreased despite the threat, and he realizes the man is merely being manipulated. Ryan signals Lee to lower her blade, and she promptly withdraws the knife from Malcolm's throat. At that moment, the system notifies him that scanning 10 individuals has completed the novice mission, granting him a beginner reward and assigning a new quest to recruit 5 individuals with exceptional stats. Delighted by the reward, Ryan eagerly checks the item he has just obtained. After departing from Ryan's residence, Eldrick meets Malcolm and inquires about the outcome of his encounter with Ryan. Malcolm complains that Ryan ignored his arguments entirely and even had him escorted out. With a sly grin, Eldrick claims he has a scheme that will force Ryan to reconsider and show proper respect. He predicts Ryan will have no choice but to seek his help once laborers refuse to cooperate. Malcolm is puzzled and asks why workers would reject Ryan's generous offer. Eldrick suggests that when the peasants slack off, Ryan will lose faith in them. Malcolm declines to participate in such a plan. He clarifies that his only grievance concerns the exclusion of wizards, and he has no desire to sabotage the dam project. Disappointed, Eldrick tries to convince him that the commoners are worthless and deserve hardship. He insists the citizens will never seriously commit to constructing the dam. Eventually, Malcolm agrees to test the proposal, deciding to see how it unfolds. Soon the townspeople discover the recruitment notice promising 3 daily meals, same-day wages, punctual payment, and fair treatment. Many suspect it is another noble trick, recalling past betrayals and voicing strong opposition. Lillian steps forward and rebukes them for tarnishing Ryan's reputation. He assures them Ryan personally promised to improve their lives. The crowd bursts into laughter, dismissing her words as nonsense. Some tease that she must harbor feelings for Ryan to defend him so passionately. Ignoring the mockery, Lillian announces that she and her father wish to enroll. The attendant agrees to accept her father, but refuses to register Lillian. She protests, insisting she is strong enough to contribute. The attendant explains Ryan forbade hiring anyone under 18 and warns of punishment for disobedience. He outlines the terms for her father: 8 hours of work, 3 meals, 10 coppers daily, and instructs him to mark the contract and report the next morning. Lillian urges her father to work diligently, and he promises to stay away from gambling. He vows not to disappoint Ryan. Embracing Lillian, he tells her to care for her ill mother at home. Suddenly, the attendant calls him back. He confirms whether the wife is truly bedridden, and the father affirms her serious illness. Smiling, the attendant explains she need not labor, and that workers may temporarily relocate to designated quarters. Clarifies it is housing provided during construction, and that they may return home afterward. Overwhelmed, Lillian's father collapses to his knees in gratitude. The attendant helps him stand and arranges for someone to escort them to choose accommodations. Hope spreads through the crowd as they begin believing Ryan's promises might be genuine. Soon everyone lines up eagerly to apply. Meanwhile, inside his chamber, the system informs Ryan he has earned a lithium iron phosphate battery blueprint. He is unimpressed since there is no generator to utilize such a device. He jokes internally whether the system expects him to attract lightning to charge it. He remains concerned about the new mission. He has no clue where to locate 5 outstanding individuals. Training Lee seemed an option, but her attributes are nearly max. He decides the best solution is scouting the city for talent once more. Soon Lee announces Lillian seeks an audience. Lillian reports that workers at the dam site are slacking. The news catches Ryan off guard. She explains she questioned her father for resting instead of working. He replied that he felt inexplicably exhausted since morning. Same fatigue affects everyone, and Lillian angrily scolds them for seeming ungrateful. They insist they are not lazy, but simply feel unwell. One suggests it might be due to long inactivity and proposes resting for the day. Lillian furiously dismisses the idea, claiming such an illness makes no sense. Ryan promptly arrives at the site. He scans Rock, Lillian's father. The status window reveals he is afflicted by a curse. Ryan informs Lillian the workers are not ill. They are under a curse. A buried stone emitting dark energy is draining them. Ryan activates his prospecting skill. He intended to use it later, but now has no alternative. The ability analyzes rocks, minerals, and geological structures in a designated area. He commands the system to survey the terrain. The system reports it is scanning within a 10-kilometer radius. Disappointed by the absence of oil or metals, he detects an abnormal energy source. Directs Rock to dig at a specific spot, and Rock agrees despite his fatigue. Soon a peculiar stone radiating faint magic is unearthed. Even Lee cannot sense its subtle aura, and wonders how Ryan identified it. Ryan orders the crystal secured in a box. He asks Lee how curses are typically treated. Explains victims seek priests or powerful guild wizards for purification. Hearing mention of the guild piques Ryan's interest. He instructs Lillian to bring Rock along to the church, assuring her he will investigate the matter. He promises the culprit behind this will not escape punishment. Shortly after, they arrive at the church. A saintess greets them warmly. For requesting assistance, Ryan scans her status. He learns her name is Ayuria, an elf with remarkably high loyalty. Ayuria introduces herself and asks how she may serve him. Ryan explains Rock has been cursed and seeks her help. He says she must examine him first. Ayuria channels her divine power over Rock. He confirms the curse's presence. Ryan inquires whether she can dispel it. Without hesitation, she releases holy energy that shatters the curse. Rock beams with relief, declaring he feels rejuvenated and eager to resume work. Ryan advises him to wait until all issues are resolved, presents the dark gem, and asks Ayuria to identify it. She explains it is a dark crystal storing magic sufficient to trigger minor curses. She adds it is more mischief than lethal intent, as such energy could have killed but was used only to induce fatigue. Ryan asks whether crafting such a crystal is difficult. Ayuria answers that creating and planting one daily would be easy. Ryan is surprised she knows about the dam initiative. Replies it benefits citizens and eases the church's burden due to employment. Ryan's anger simmers as he concludes Malcolm must be involved. He asks Ayuria if she can cleanse the entire site. Ayuria admits it would be challenging since the crystal might be hidden elsewhere and constant digging would halt construction. Ryan feels torn and begins considering whether he should approach Malcolm directly. Ayuria suggests she knows someone who might solve his dilemma, though the person is eccentric, and asks if he is willing to try. She leaves him a note pointing to Lady Selina's residence, the former head of the Wizards Guild. Ryan understands he must persuade Selina to lend her assistance. Suddenly, Lee senses danger nearby. She shoves Ryan aside without hesitation. An enormous blast shakes the structure moments later. Ryan is left stunned by the sudden explosion. The door is blown off, and he spots Selina in the distance experimenting with volatile spells. She is obsessively testing a hazardous incantation and seems unconcerned about collateral damage. When Ryan states his purpose, Selina flatly declines. She claims to be preoccupied with developing magical devices and refuses distractions. Ryan inquires whether these devices include enchanted wands. Selina laughs mockingly and tells him to stop talking nonsense. He intervenes, warning Selina to mind her attitude toward Ryan. Selina immediately notices Lee's remarkable magical affinity. She invites Lee to become her apprentice, promising to help Ryan afterward. The atmosphere turns tense instantly. He prepares to respond forcefully to the disrespect. Ryan quickly soothes her, reminding her they came seeking aid. He asks Selina whether she crafted the magical contraptions scattered on the table. Selina is surprised by his awareness, but admits they are failed prototypes. She explains she aims to invent a device capable of storing her powerful lightning magic. Mention of electrical magic instantly intrigues Ryan. He clarifies if she means a tool designed to store electricity. She confirms but complains every attempt has exploded and dismisses him to resume her work. After a pause, Ryan claims he knows a method to create such a storage device. He asks if she will assist him if he shares the technique. Selina suspects he is joking and says she lacks time for games. Ryan insists he is serious and wants assurance of her cooperation first. Selina replies that if he truly succeeds, will handle Malcolm and compel the guild to heed Ryan. However, if he fails, she refuses responsibility for any consequences. The three move outside into the courtyard. Ryan feels relieved since electricity was a concern, and he produces the lithium iron phosphate battery blueprint, intending to use mages as generators until hydropower is ready. Soon he completes assembling the battery and presents it to Selina. She doubts its safety, fearing it may detonate even with minimal charge. Ryan counters that it holds about 180 watt-hours per kilogram and invites her to test its limits. Selina takes the cord to evaluate its capacity herself. She channels a surge of electricity into the device and is astonished when it remains stable. Ryan grins and remarks that her output barely scratches its maximum capacity. Driven by pride, Selina unleashes a stronger current to prove herself. Eventually, she collapses from exhaustion while the battery stays unharmed. She is amazed that the device can truly contain her magic. Ryan inspects the battery's status. He notes it is charged to 87%, enough to power a vehicle over 3,000 kilometers. He is pleased she achieved such capacity and jokingly considers her a living power source. Ryan verifies the stored electric output. Selena is startled and asks whether he can manipulate electricity as well. Ryan replies he can do more than use it. He can make it accessible to the entire city. Selena doubts this claim since magic is not easily mastered. Ryan smiles, hinting he possesses even greater magical technologies. He promises societal improvement if she partners with him. Meanwhile, Malcolm relaxes in his quarters, expecting Ryan to beg for reconciliation. Suddenly, Selena bursts into the room. Malcolm is shaken to his core. He accuses him of overstepping by acting against Ryan. Malcolm feigns innocence and denies involvement. Selena seizes him firmly, demanding he confess what he did at the dam site. She displays her wrath unmistakably. Fearing her anger, Malcolm quickly agrees to speak. He admits rallying the mages and convincing them Ryan insulted them. They created cursed crystals and teleported them beneath the construction site to exhaust workers. His aim was to force Ryan to apologize and cooperate. After confessing, he insists he had no further malicious plans, and Selena scolds him for being manipulated. Malcolm is stunned by her accusation. Selena orders him to recall all involved mages. She then contacts Ryan, informing him the guild issue has been resolved. Ryan expresses gratitude. Selena offers to eliminate Eldrick if needed. Ryan declines, preferring to use Eldrick to expose his hidden ally. Selena agrees to withdraw and trust his strategy. Smiling brightly, she asks him to summon her when ready to pursue their larger project. Ryan promises to do so and asks her to have the mages charge more batteries. Later, Eldrick informs the masked man that Ryan controls the Mage Association and seeks advice, but the masked figure says only Selena poses a threat. He urges Eldrick to focus on sabotaging the dam project. He warns that if the dam succeeds, it will rejuvenate the populace, something they cannot allow, and Eldrick claims he has already set a trap. He secretly instructed grain suppliers to inflate prices. The masked figure questions whether those nobles truly support him. Eldrick explains Ryan forced them to surrender funds, but he promised to restore their wealth quietly. He believes their loyalty lies with profit rather than principle. Eldrick is certain Ryan lacks sufficient funds to finish construction. At the marketplace, Lillian argues with merchants over soaring prices. Grain that cost 1 gold coin yesterday now costs 2. The vendor shrugs and tells her to leave if she cannot afford it. Lillian recalls her promise to secure affordable grain for Ryan. She warns the sellers that Ryan may intervene. Merchant retorts that as businessmen they fear no action from Ryan. He calls it a lucrative opportunity and even shoves Lillian aside. Yuria soon learns of the price hike. She is furious that grain doubled overnight. She tells her sister Ilaria their supplies will not last through winter and instructs her to return the grain while she seeks a solution. She hands Ilaria money intended as a bribe. Ilaria is shocked at the unusually large amount. Yuria grows impatient and orders her to comply without questions. Just as she prepares to slip the money away, he suddenly materializes and swiftly grabs it from her hands. Both of them freeze in disbelief, only to be even more stunned when Rain steps into view. Lee casually tosses the coin pouch over to Rain. Ryan then questions Yuria about whether she would consider striking a bargain with him. Saintess narrows her eyes and demands to know what sort of arrangement he thinks he could possibly have with her. Ryan tells her to relax and deliberately calls her an elf. Yuria pretends confusion, insisting she has no clue what he means, and reminding him that elves are forbidden from entering the human capital. Ryan informs Yuria and Ilaria that they need not guard themselves since he is already aware of their elven identity, prompting Yuria to bluntly ask what he expects from them. Ryan answers plainly that his concern is about grain supplies. Yuria, however, doubts that Ryan has the capability to assist them. Ryan challenges her assumption and asks why she thinks he lacks influence. He explains that 4 dominant noble houses have monopolized the city's food market for more than 100 years, firmly controlling grain prices without opposition. Saintess remarks that while Ryan may have frightened a few guests with his harsh conduct at the recent banquet, the nobles he faced there were insignificant compared to the real powers. Ryan then inquires whether she truly understands the city's inner workings. Confidently replies that she has lived there for over a century, adding that his move against the Edwin family has eliminated any chance of compromise. Yuria goes on to explain that war and calamities have caused year-long shortages, and soaring grain costs mean her people stand little hope of survival. Ryan confidently assures her that grain will soon be cheaper than ever within the city. At the same time, the leaders of the 4 most powerful houses convene in private. They celebrate their recent gains, pleased by the fortune they have accumulated in such a short time. The men lift their glasses in triumph. Their celebration is interrupted when the butler informs them that Ryan has summoned them to a banquet. Alarm spreads among the four as they begin imagining all the possible traps Ryan might be setting. One lord confesses his fear to Augustus, head of the Klein family and the one who united them. Augustus reassures him, claiming Eldrick confirmed that increasing grain prices is fully legal under national law. Furthermore, he insists that as long as they remain united, no one can defeat them. Augustus boasts that grain prices rise or fall at their whim, and even the emperor lacks authority to interfere, let alone a young upstart like René. The others nod in agreement, convinced that following Augustus will secure their wealth for the next century. He adds that at most they might reduce prices by a mere 5 coppers to placate René. Augustus sternly warns them that anyone who attempts to withdraw will face harsh consequences. The remaining 3 vow their loyalty and promise to stand beside him. With consensus reached, Augustus suggests they change attire before meeting Rain. That evening, Augustus and the others step into the grand hall. Rain is already there awaiting their arrival. Ryan instructs a maid to have the kitchen prepare a feast for the distinguished visitors. As the 4 men walk inside, they are dressed in worn-out garments to give the impression of poverty. Ryan notices their act and secretly smiles, aware they underestimate him. He immediately questions why they appear so shabby despite controlling the city's ground. Augustus quickly mentions Ryan's dam initiative, claiming they intend to support it, while another boasts about their generous donations and supposedly low grain prices. Lee grows furious, recognizing their blatant attempt to mislead Ryan. Once they finish their performance, Ryan smiles politely and thanks them for their supposed cooperation. He explains that he invited them to discuss grain matters, and Augustus responds that they understand Rain is short on money. Yet he argues that selling at 2 gold coins per sack already causes them significant losses. Ryan shocks them by clarifying he does not want lower prices, but instead demands they raise each sack to 4 gold coins. Augustus is left speechless by the unexpected proposal. Ryan repeats himself and adds that he will claim 30% of their profits. After confirming the terms, Augustus realizes Ryan is far from naive. He recognizes him as equally shrewd, and the 4 quietly celebrate what seems like an easier path to wealth with Ryan's backing. They even regret not approaching him sooner, believing he aligns with their interests. Still, Augustus worries about potential backlash if prices rise without formal authorization. He cautiously asks Ryan when the announcement will be made public. Ryan reveals that an official document bearing his family seal is prepared and will be posted after their meeting. He also warns them that defiance will result in the same fate that befell the Edwin family. The 4 smile confidently and pledge their cooperation. After returning to their estates, one suggests informing Eldrick about the sudden price hike, feeling the change is suspicious. Augustus angrily hurls his cup to the ground. He snaps that involving more people will only reduce their earnings, accusing Ryan of using them for his own gain. Augustus insists the agreement remain secret so they can fully exploit the crisis. Another lord admits the deal seems almost too favorable to be real. Nevertheless, he swears loyalty to Augustus regardless of the risks. Augustus orders them to purchase all available grain from smaller traders before the announcement. They eagerly anticipate profits beyond imagination. Following day, the Saintess storms into Ryan's office to scold him. She demands to know why he is cooperating with corrupt merchants. Her temper is on the verge of exploding. Lillian intervenes, urging her to calm down and reminding her of Ryan's promise to lower prices. He encourages Ayuria to trust that Ryan must have a strategy. Ayuria directly asks whether he truly intends to raise grain prices. Ryan reassures her that the surge is temporary and predicts the grain market will crash within half a month. Ayuria dismisses his words as nonsense, accusing him of ignorance for expecting prices to fall. Ryan questions how much she believes prices would have dropped if he had merely threatened the nobles. She responds that at least they would not have doubled, fearing people will starve now, that prices reach 4 gold coins. Ryan counters that even at 2 gold coins, citizens could not afford grain and would still face starvation. He argues the outcome is similar, only differing in timing. Ryan clarifies his objective is not to force a small price reduction, but to ruin the merchants entirely. A week later, Ryan is giving Selina a lesson when Lee arrives to inform him that the elf seeks an audience. Selina assumes it concerns grain again, noting the price has soared to 7 gold coins per sack. Indeed, Ayuria appears to protest this very issue. Ryan asks Lee how many days have passed since the increase began, and she replies 7. He smiles calmly, declaring it is time to bring the merchants down. The Saintess grows furious, demanding clarification and threatening to sever relations if he refuses. Ryan calmly explains he withheld the truth earlier to ensure her anger appeared genuine and would not arouse noble suspicion. He asks her what resource the city currently lacks most. He struggles to provide an answer, Ryan states plainly that what the city truly lacks is an honest grain seller. He elaborates that greed is the simplest human weakness to manipulate. Points to the influx of merchants who rushed in after hearing grain reached 4 gold coins per sack. Ryan predicts the 4 families will hoard massive quantities, attracting even more traders. As a result, Eichling City now holds more grain than anywhere else in the empire. Faced with 10,000% profits, merchants lose reason and think only of wealth. Ryan assures Ayuria that from this day forward, the 4 noble houses will be wiped out. He hands Lee a message and orders her to distribute it throughout the city. The notice proclaims that Ayuria will sell the church's reserve grain in opposition to Ryan's approach. He instructs that the selling price be set at 1 coin per sack. Ayuria is stunned and questions why he grants her this responsibility. Ryan grins and admits he possesses no grain to sell himself. The saintess protests that she lacks such vast reserves unless she sacrifices the grain needed for her people's winter survival. Ayuria keeps pressing the argument without backing down. Selena finally interrupts, calling her overly innocent and urging her to trust Ryan's judgment and begin selling the grain immediately, because hesitation will only cost her more money. Ayuria fires back that her people value food over wealth and care nothing for profit compared to securing grain. Exhausted by the debate, Ryan orders her to follow his instructions and reassures her that her grain reserves will grow rather than shrink. Then looks to Selena and says he is relying on her and the Mage Association to lock down the city. Selena confidently promises that no one will be allowed to leave. Shortly after, Ryan notices Lee behaving oddly. He gently asks whether something is troubling her. He admits she fears the plan might fail and wonders what will happen if the merchants delay selling, while Ayuria runs out of grain. Ryan explains there are covert schemes and open strategies, saying hidden plots can be countered, but public plans are impossible to avoid. He adds that the merchants in town are blinded by greed and will gamble everything for profit. Yet if word spreads that prices will suddenly crash, they will panic and rush to sell. Soon after, Augustus hears that the church plans to release its grain reserves at 1 gold coin per sack to aid citizens. The other nobles anxiously ask him what to do, realizing they overlooked the church entirely. One tries to calm the group, arguing the church cannot possibly have enough grain for everyone. Augustus decides to dispatch men to the church, instructing them to purchase as much grain as they can secure. Before long, crowds swarm the church demanding to buy grain. Ayuria tells them not to shove, claiming ample supplies exist, and that the Pope has sent 10,000 sacks after hearing of their hardship. Many remain skeptical, convinced the stock will vanish quickly, which drives them to scramble to buy whatever they can. At that moment, soldiers arrive, publicly announcing that this is merely the first shipment, and more grain will arrive from the Pope the following day. Ayuria plays her role while secretly praying Ryan will not push her too far, fearing the Pope's reaction. The news terrifies the merchants, who sense their profits slipping away. One merchant calculates he paid 60 silver coins per sack plus 10 for transport and other expenses totaling 95 silver coins. Realizing he can still earn something if he sells immediately, quickly declares he will sell at 95 silver coins per sack. Buyers instantly crowd around him demanding grain. Another merchant grows furious and decides to undercut him even further to drive the market down. He announces a price of 90 silver coins, and soon the rate tumbles to 80 silver coins. Ryan watches from his balcony as chaos erupts, and Selena praises his foresight since events unfold exactly as he predicted. Ryan explains that this is pure human instinct, saying that selling even slightly later than others means deeper losses, which is why everyone is acting out of fear. Selena wonders aloud if the price might sink to 50 silver coins at this pace. Ryan chuckles and tells her she underestimates just how greedy merchants can be. Predicts that once Augustus and his allies start unloading their stock, grain will become the cheapest item in town. Selena doubts Augustus and his partners will panic like the others, since they paid top prices for their supplies. He also notes their unity at the banquet and questions whether they would betray one another. Ryan laughs and says she gives them far too much credit. He insists there is no true solidarity among them, and that profit will always outweigh loyalty. He adds that grain prices are no longer the main concern, and that they should discuss the next phase with the Saintess. Back at Augustus' residence, he learns that outside merchants are dumping grain at extremely low prices. The market has already fallen to around 75 silver coins per sack. Another noble argues they still control the city's supply and doubts outsiders could have brought in so much grain. After pausing to analyze the situation, Augustus suddenly pieces everything together, concludes that Ryan has been orchestrating their collapse. The others rush to him in confusion, demanding clarification. He explains that Ryan spread rumors of soaring prices, to lure merchants from neighboring towns. This naturally encouraged traders to flood the city with grain. Once the city was saturated, Ryan used the church's announcement to trigger panic selling, forcing outside merchants to accept losses rather than risk total ruin. Augustus admits that Ryan has cleverly outmaneuvered them. Still, he claims to have a counter-strategy to recover their position. Nobles beg him to reveal it before they are financially destroyed. Augustus argues that the current supply will last only a few months and suggests hoarding grain until scarcity drives prices back up. He assures them they will recoup losses if none of them caves, warning that anyone who sells early will doom them all. One agrees outwardly and says he must return home to secure his stores. Secretly, however, he plans to sell quickly to avoid being the last one holding stock. His departure signals the others to devise their own hidden plans. After the three nobles leave, Augustus privately orders his retainer to sell all their grain before the others act first. Later, Ryan summons Ayuria and shows her piles of grain sacks, asking if the amount satisfies her needs. He is stunned, noticing that their stock grows despite continuous sale. Ryan explains they sell at peak prices and buy back at rock-bottom rates, generating enormous profit through this cycle. As they talk, Lillian bursts in announcing that prices have fallen again, and that 3 sacks now cost 1 gold coin. Ryan reminds Ayuria that she doubted him, and advises her to purchase more while prices are low. He then asks if she is ready to negotiate their agreement. Ayuria looks puzzled, and asks what kind of proposal he has for the elves. Ryan surprises her by saying he can provide everything the elves require. He states he can supply essentials like grain as well as major assets, such as land. Ayuria is left speechless by the offer. She says such a decision rests with the Elven Queen, and Ryan calmly asks her to arrange a meeting. Ayuria writes a letter and entrusts it to Illyria to deliver to the Queen. Ryan feels satisfied, believing that once the crisis ends, the nobles will not stir trouble anytime soon. Having secured influence over the Magician Guild, he now intends to extend his reach into the church. He observes that Eldric's remaining leverage lies in the army and taxation, concluding that seizing control of the military would weaken him greatly. As Ryan contemplates this, Lee walks in and pats his head affectionately. She encourages him to take a break. Suddenly, a man storms into the room, complaining loudly about the soldiers' behavior. Ryan rises calmly and approaches him. The man shouts, demanding to know who Ryan is. Ryan replies that he is merely someone interested in doing business. Meanwhile, Lillian is assigned to transport goods toward the elven lands. At the city gate, soldiers block her path, begin smashing her containers, claiming it is part of a routine inspection. Finding nothing suspicious inside, the unit leader then demands she pay a toll to exit the city. Lillian fumes, angered that she must pay after they damaged her cargo. Commander coldly states she must either pay or leave. She prepares to argue further when someone advises her to comply and pay. Lillian produces a single coin. The soldier insists the toll has been raised to 5 coins under Ryan's order. Curious, she notes her goods are worth only 3 silver coins, yet she is charged 5 coins, and the soldier repeats she can pay or turn back. Lillian realizes the soldiers are abusing Ryan's name for extortion and knows they will face consequences once his scheme is complete. He reluctantly hands over 5 coins and is finally permitted to pass. Elsewhere, Rien rides in a carriage with the earlier man. Concealing his identity, Ryan criticizes the toll increase while the man objects strongly. He warns him not to speak ill of Ryan, calling him their savior. Ryan is taken aback when the trader defends him, clearly placing the blame on the soldiers instead. The merchant passionately describes how Ryan cleverly engineered the fall of grain prices to ease the burden on the citizens. He admits he suffered losses, but says it is the first time he has witnessed a ruler genuinely care for the common folk. He vows that if he ever meets Ryan in person, he will dedicate himself fully to serving him. Ryan then brings up the rumors accusing him of committing cruel acts. Yet the merchant remains firm, insisting the corrupt families received what they deserve. Ryan asks whether he is familiar with the Edwin family, and the merchant replies that everyone knows them. Explains that many assume their fortune comes from gambling houses, but that belief is wrong. Lowering his voice, the merchant reveals that the Edwin family's true trade is trafficking people. Ryan is stunned by the revelation. Fury surges through him as he realizes he is striving to grow the population, while the Edwins have been undermining his efforts. He concludes that securing control over the guards must come first, since internal disorder would invite outside threats. Soon they reach another checkpoint, where soldiers are demanding payment. Lillian questions the demand. The guard claims that the city toll differs from the border fort fee. Lillian angrily protests, saying they were only charged once before and he is clearly lying. The guard shrugs and tells her to either pay or leave. Annoyed, Lillian demands to know the exact amount. She explodes when told the toll is 1 gold coin. Before she can escalate further, Ryan calmly instructs her from inside the carriage to pay. Upon noticing passengers inside, the guard orders everyone out for inspection, claiming it is necessary to check the carriage. Ryan steps down and tells him to proceed. Guard grows uneasy when he sees Ryan's refined demeanor and the maid at his side. He demands to know Ryan's identity. It turns out the soldiers do not recognize Ryan, but they do recognize the merchant with him, whom they call Trist. Trist clearly shows his displeasure upon seeing them. He has every reason, since he knows they were once mountain bandits tied to the Edwin family and involved in transporting captives, the same family that elevated his status. Guard complains that during Trist's previous trip, he failed to pay enough tariff, and he was reprimanded for it. He abruptly slaps Trist and says he must compensate for that mistake or he will not pass. Trist argues he paid exactly what was requested. Guard retorts that there was no issue before, but now there is a deficit, adding he might have let the carriage pass. However, since Trist is present, he demands 5 gold coins. Ryan intervenes, questioning why the toll is so steep and asking why tax revenue remains low despite such charges. Guard is shocked that someone he considers insignificant is challenging him. Before he can react violently, he becomes distracted by Lee's striking beauty. Sensing tension rising, Trist offers to pay the 5 gold coins as long as his business is not obstructed. The guard quickly snatches the money pouch, then shifts his attention to Lee, asking her where she resides. When he tries to touch her, Ryan firmly grabs his wrist and calls him a disgrace. Guard attempts to strike Ryan, but Lee swiftly cuts him down. Ryan orders Lee to eliminate all the corrupt soldiers and instructs their accompanying guards to secure the fort afterward. The remaining soldiers attempt to flee. He pursues and slaughters them without mercy. Ryan examines their abilities and is disappointed by their incompetence. His father had once warned him about a nearby hostile territory and advised him not to provoke conflict. Ryan feels fortunate to uncover this corruption early, knowing it could have led to disaster against the Empire. Just as Lee prepares to finish the last of them, a commanding voice booms from behind, demanding to know who dares cause trouble at the border. The soldiers brighten when they recognize General Caesar, arriving to intervene. As soon as Ryan sees Caesar, he evaluates his capabilities, notes Caesar's exceptional talent, but also senses deep disloyalty. Ryan approaches and asks if he is Caesar of the Hulker family with a brother stationed in Prisa's territory. Caesar confirms and questions how Ryan knows about his brother. Ryan replies that Priscilla Edgar is his elder sister. Realization dawns on Caesar and the soldiers that they are facing Ryan, the Grand Duke's youngest son, and they fear the consequences of offending him. Caesar recalls receiving a letter from his brother warning him of Ryan's arrival and instructing him to ensure his safety. A month prior, Eldrick had visited Caesar with a large sum of money, hinting the city's future would depend on him. Caesar had heard whispers that the Duke undervalued him, sending him to a remote city like Iceland as an insult. Those voices told him he deserved far more, which made it easy for him to accept Eldrick's bribe. After reflecting, Caesar draws his sword and accuses Ryan of being a fraud. He commands the soldiers to kill him, promising rewards. He angrily demands whether he intends to rebel against the Duke. Some soldiers hesitate and warn Caesar that defying the Duke could doom their families. Caesar argues the man before them has already committed treason by impersonating the Duke's son. He reminds them of Ryan's destruction of the Edwin family, tempts them with promises of wealth from the western lands, and suggests delivering Ryan's head to the northern Orvis Empire for a better future. He tells them the choice is theirs, and he will not force them. The soldiers waver in uncertainty, unsure whether to obey their general or reconsider. He watches carefully as they deliberate. After a brief pause, they side with Caesar, deciding to follow his command. Caesar mockingly asks Ryan for any final words. Ryan calmly offers him one last opportunity to repent. Caesar instead orders the attack. Seeing no chance of negotiation, he tears her skirt for better movement and charges at the soldiers. She slits one throat before he can react. Another attempts to ambush her. Her swift agility saves her, and she swiftly kills him. She suddenly notices a soldier reaching Ryan with a spear aimed at his head. Instantly, she hurls her dagger, striking him down as Ryan remains calm and composed. Ryan again offers Caesar a final chance and advises him not to persist. Caesar refuses and promises 1,000 gold coins to whoever kills Ryan. Bounty excites the soldiers, who crave quick riches. They attempt to overwhelm Lee, but they are no match for her skill. She handles several at once with ease, and defeats them without shifting her stance. Seeing his men struggle, Caesar orders the mages to strike. The mages respond immediately, launching icy projectiles toward Lee. She forcefully knocks them aside with a sharp kick. But this quickly creates a new complication. The lingering frost magic creeps over her legs and locks them in ice. As soon as Caesar sees Lee frozen in place, he commands his troops to seize Ryan. before the soldiers can close in on her. Ryan shouts for her to spring upward immediately and tosses her a hammer to aid the jump. She reacts without hesitation. Ryan has already prepared an electric battery and is eager to test its strength. He opens it and lets the wire fall onto the ground. A surge of electricity shoots through the cable. The current courses through the soldiers, racking them with agony. Ryan remains unharmed thanks to insulated shoes, while the men behind stare in confusion and assume he is wielding thunder magic. Ryan privately wishes he had a camera to record the scene and later warn his workers about the hazards of mishandling electricity. Furious at their hesitation, Caesar shouts at his troops. One soldier argues that Ryan must be using forbidden sorcery, since anyone approaching him dies instantly. Caesar responds by slicing off the man's head, declaring that disobedience earns only death. He then orders the remaining soldiers to overwhelm Ryan, insisting numbers will prevail. After a short while, a few soldiers are still standing. Lee questions why they have not fallen. Ryan explains the battery likely drained, since he brought only one for testing. Lee suggests retreating with him. Ryan refuses, stating Caesar must not escape. Seeing the casualties stop, Caesar commands his men to rush and capture Ryan. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning crashes down. From it emerges an enraged Selena. He coldly tells Caesar he has overstepped, and he instantly understands the danger. Several mages arrive with her, and she asks Ryan if her timing is right. He replies that it is perfect since the battery just died. Selena asks about the electricity's effects. Ryan says he will explain after Caesar and his men are detained. Selena nods in agreement and commands the mages to subdue the rebels. Without delay, lightning strikes rain down on the soldiers. Many collapse and plead for mercy. Caesar, however, refuses to yield and remains intent on killing Ryan. He lunges forward to strike him down. Lee intercepts the blow. She moves faster than Caesar anticipates and closes the distance before he can respond. With a brutal kick to his face, she sends him flying. He slams hard against a wall. He glares down and calls him. When Caesar regains awareness, he finds himself bound to a post with Ryan and Lee standing before him. Ryan now holds incriminating documents against them. Records reveal years of embezzlement by Caesar and the border guards, and Ryan demands to know when he aligned with Eldrick. Caesar is startled and asks how Ryan uncovered this. Ryan calmly says there is no need for shock since he anticipated Eldrick's betrayal and was waiting for the right chance. Caesar has unknowingly provided that opportunity. Caesar scoffs, saying a few corruption papers cannot threaten Eldrick. Ryan replies that the documents are minor leverage and that what truly matters are the city's annual tax accounts, which will shape its future. Caesar laughs and calls him a dreamer, claiming Eldrick controls the city and no one will follow Ryan. Ryan steps closer and remarks that nobles are only nobles while alive. Once dead, they are merely corpses. Fear flickers in Caesar's eyes as he asks if Ryan intends to slaughter the nobility. Ryan answers that they have two options: obey and prosper or rebel and perish like Caesar. He locks eyes with Caesar and asks which path they will likely choose. Later, Ryan concludes the city walls must be repaired swiftly, because Duke Sauron is certain to send forces. Studying the map, Ryan notes that peace with the Western Elves will secure that border if talks succeed. Feels safe regarding his sister's eastern lands, leaving only Sauron in the north as a threat. Lee reports that the guards had extorted roughly 350,000 gold coins. Ryan orders security reforms, rewarding the poorest guards with 100 gold each and sending the remainder back to the city. He thanks Selena for arriving promptly with the Mage Association. She brushes it off modestly, till she requests a detailed explanation of the battery's discharge and how a non-mage can wield it. Ryan promises to explain on their return journey. As they prepare to depart, Malcolm rushes in with alarming news. Pale with fear, he reports that Eldrick has revolted and seized control of the city. Selena gasps in shock. Ryan remains calm, realizing Eldrick has finally made his move out of impatience. Selena asks their next step, since all guild mages were deployed to the border, and none remain inside as allies. Ryan tells her to stay composed, because Eldrick sealed his own fate the moment he rebelled. Soon Ryan marches back toward the city, with mages and troops at his side. At the gate, Eldrick confronts him and demands his purpose. Ryan questions why Eldrick betrayed the Duke. Eldrick snaps that he was furious at being abandoned in such a miserable post. He claims he and the Duke founded the Empire together. But after success, the Duke cast him aside to Iceland instead of honoring him. He says he petitioned repeatedly for reassignment, but was ignored. Eldrick angrily points at Ryan and tells him to blame his father. Several nobles step forward as Eldrick claims they too helped build the realm yet were treated the same. Insists they are reclaiming what is rightfully theirs. Ryan feels underwhelmed by such reasoning. Finding the excuses shallow, Ryan offers Eldrick one chance to surrender and leave, warning he will storm the city within 3 days otherwise. Eldrick and the nobles laugh wildly, doubting he can breach it so quickly. They mock him as empty talk. Eldrick proposes a wager to prove his confidence. Ryan asks the terms of this bet. Eldrick says if Ryan fails in 3 days, he he will rule uncontested. Ryan asks what happens if he succeeds. Eldrick promises to submit to any demand. He eagerly asks if Ryan accepts. Selena advises against it, suggesting a gradual siege instead. He adds that the Grand Duke has been informed, and reinforcements will eventually crush Eldrick. Seeing Ryan silent, Eldrick mocks him as frightened, and the nobles taunt him to accept if he has courage. Ryan finally answers that if they crave humiliation, he will grant it, accepting the bet and reminding them to honor their word in 3 days. Eldrick confidently agrees, declaring that all witnesses will confirm the outcome. Eldrick suddenly informs Ryan that the Orvis forces have already learned of his uprising, adds that their troops should reach the border within 10 days. After concluding the confrontation, Ryan and his followers establish a provisional camp outside the city gates. Selena approaches him and explains that although the walls appear damaged, brute force alone will not breach them. A soldier suggests retreating south to await the Duke's reinforcements. Ryan reassures everyone that the walls will fall within 3 days. His only concern is the advancing Orvis army. He asks Lee whether the firewood and hay bundles are fully prepared. He confirms everything is ready and mentions they located a nearby lake. Ryan instructs Selena to have the mages freeze the lake water until it nears 0 degrees. Confused, Selena questions whether this plan can truly topple the walls. Ryan calmly assures her the structure will not endure beyond 3 days. Soon, his troops rush toward the city carrying only firewood. Eldrick is stunned, thinking they have lost their senses. After tossing the wood against the walls, the soldiers quickly withdraw. Perplexed, Eldrick asks if anyone has seen such tactics before, and one man guesses Ryan aims to burn the city. Eldrick strikes him for stupidity, saying stone cannot be burned. Man admits he has no better explanation. While Eldrick scolds him, another reports the walls are indeed ablaze. Eldrick bursts into laughter at the absurd sight, mocking the idea of igniting solid stone. The men ask whether to deploy mages to extinguish it or shoot the attackers. Eldrick refuses, saving the borrowed Orvis mages for a decisive moment. He believes expending magic now would be foolish. He remains confident Ryan will be defeated within 3 days. Before long, flames cover the entire wall. Eldrick retreats to his chambers to celebrate, later hearing reports that Ryan's forces only continue fueling the fire. He ridicules them, asking if they have exhausted their winter supplies, invites his allies to witness what he expects to be Ryan's failure. On the wager's final day, Eldrick's camp rejoices, believing victory is certain and the heat from the fire grows intense. When Ryan approaches the gate, Eldrick taunts him about surrendering. Ryan responds by offering one last chance before he eliminates them. Eldrick laughs wildly, questioning Ryan's sanity and reminding him of their bet. He accuses Ryan of wavering before his own men. Ryan replies that since they chose ruin, they must face its consequences. He signals Selena to proceed. Selena summons a colossal bolt of lightning. Eldrick orders his mages to prepare defenses. Selena releases the strike. Mages quickly erect a barrier to block it. When nothing seems to happen, they laugh, claiming she missed. Suddenly, rain begins pouring down, leaving Eldrick's side bewildered. Ryan commands his soldiers to advance. Each man carries jars filled with icy water. Selena feels drained from the spell, and Ryan thanks her sincerely. He admires her ability to alter weather and Imagine's future drought relief. Selena asks if the strategy will truly succeed, and Ryan assures her the chilled water will bring the wall down. Soldiers begin pouring the freezing water. The wall emits a sharp cracking sound. Eldrick is puzzled by the noise. The nobles panic, watching the structure tremble. The wall visibly starts to fracture. Moments later, it collapses completely. Ryan orders a full assault. He instructs them to spare those who surrender, but show no mercy to resistors. His forces surge through the breach. Selena stands astonished, struggling to comprehend how the wall fell. Ryan tells her it is time to return inside. Realizing his miscalculation, Eldrick considers fleeing and hopes the Orvis army will rescue him. Before he can escape, fellow nobles block his path, declaring they refuse to die while he runs. As Ryan enters the city, citizens cheer his brilliance. Soldiers praise him for achieving victory without casualties. Selena persistently asks how he accomplished it. Ryan realizes she will not relent until satisfied. He explains the event was based on thermal expansion and contraction principles. Selena grows more intrigued as he describes how materials expand when heated and contract when cool. He elaborates that particle motion increases with heat causing expansion, while cooling reduces vibration leading to shrinkage. Ryan promises to finish the explanation after resolving Eldrick's matter. Near the ruins, a trapped noble begs for rescue. Ryan asks if he truly expects mercy. Nobles claim Eldrick deceived them into rebellion. Ryan reminds them he offered 2 prior chances. Desperate, they offer their estates in exchange for life. Ryan counters that once executed, their assets automatically become his. warned that killing them will be seen as tyranny. Ryan replies loyalty follows interests alone and mocks their ignorance. He orders their arrest pending judgment. Meanwhile, Eldrick retreats safely to his quarter. He informs his masked superior that Ryan breached the wall. The masked figure is stunned and demands an explanation. Eldrick recounts how days of fire followed by cold water caused the collapse. The masked man scoffs, refusing to believe such a method worked. He insists no history records such an event, though Eldrick maintains it is true. The masked man concludes Ryan must have used mysterious magic. Eldrick urges focusing on escape before Ryan arrives. As they prepare to flee, Ryan steps in, asking where they think they can run. Eldrick is stunned and questions how Ryan reached them so fast. Ryan answers that abandoning the walls made pursuit easy. He explains that Eldrick's soldiers dropped their weapons upon seeing him flee. Ryan turns to the masked man, taunting him about hiding his face. The masked man warns that Ryan's pride will fade once the Orvis army arrives. He says the destroyed wall has complicated matters. The masked man attempts to act, but Ryan commands Lee to restrain him. Lee hurls her blade straight toward the man. The weapon slices through his mask and leaves a gash beneath his eye. The man suddenly realizes who Lee is, and the recognition sends a cold shiver across his face. He quickly activates the scroll he had revealed earlier. In an instant, he disappears together with Eldrick. He expresses regret for failing to stop them in time, but Ryan reassures her not to blame herself since he had anticipated they would have an escape plan. Still, he is uneasy because the identity of Eldrick's accomplice remains unknown to him. Lee then reveals to Ryan that she actually knows who the man is. He explains that his name is Raven Edwin, once a follower of the Grand Duke who later betrayed Reen's father and sided with Duke Soren. Hearing the name, Ryan wonders whether he has any connection to Adrian. Lee confirms this, explaining that Raven was originally the head of the Edwin family. However, he opposed the Duke's ideology and chose to defect to the opposing faction. Shortly afterward, Selena walks in and asks Ryan how they plan to handle the advancing Orvis forces. He points out that even if every mage in the city repairs the wall, it still won't be sufficient. Ryan assures her there is no need for concern because he always manages to find a solution. Once everything is arranged, Ryan decides to speak directly to the citizens. Selena questions what he could possibly say to keep the crowd from panicking. Ryan grabs a megaphone to draw everyone's attention. It announces that the army of the Orvis Empire is advancing toward them. He informs them that the troops will arrive within a few days. As soon as the news spreads, fear seeps into the very core of the citizens. Selena thinks Ryan has lost his senses because he seems to have worsened the situation. The townspeople begin to panic, questioning why another invasion is happening so soon after the last attack. Some argue they should gather their valuables and flee, while others insist on staying because the city has flourished under Ryan's rule. Selena even reprimands Ryan for revealing the invasion, but he calmly asks her why he should have concealed it. He answers that in crises people instinctively rely on the army for protection. Since the citizens lack military training, remaining composed in danger is difficult for them. Ryan responds by explaining that she is misunderstanding the broader picture. He tells her that only the commander is expected to stay calm, whereas soldiers are often the ones least able to do so. Selena is puzzled by his reasoning. Ryan then produces the challenge letter sent by the Empire and displays it before the entire city. He reads aloud how the letter mocks the citizens as incapable of defending their homes and brands them cowards who would abandon their leader to survive. Hearing these insults, the people erupt in anger after enduring constant suffering under the Empire. Ryan continues, declaring that the Empire gravely misjudged them by calling them fools and cowards. The crowd responds with a thunderous roar of agreement. They shout that they will resist and fight back. Impressed by their determination, Ryan promises to lead them in driving the Orvis forces away. That night, Lee visits Ryan's quarters and urges him to relax with some tea. Ryan replies that rest is impossible because they must devise a plan before the enemy arrives. If they fail, the city will inevitably fall to the Orvis Empire. He then brings up the speech he delivered earlier that day. Ryan tells her not to overthink it since much of it was fabricated. He admits he said those words to steady the people's nerves. He remains unconvinced and urges him to leave the city with her to avoid danger. Ryan reassures her that precautions are already in place, as he instructed Malcolm and Selena to evacuate the children, elderly, and women in an orderly fashion. Ryan becomes intrigued by a certain book. It discusses something called dark green divine oil. He turns to Lee and asks her about it. Lee admits she is unsure, but has heard it is highly flammable and commonly used in witches' rituals. Petroleum can appear in many shades such as deep red, gold, dark green, black, brown, or even clear. Its color largely depends on the amount of gum and asphaltene present, with higher concentrations resulting in darker hues. Intrigued, Ryan insists that Lee take him to the stored oil immediately after learning it is kept in the warehouse. They hurry toward the warehouse without delay. Ryan commands the soldiers to locate the dark green divine oil. cautions them strictly against bringing any open flames near it. Surveying the warehouse, Ryan notices piles of money everywhere, realizing it is the wealth Eldrick embezzled over the years. He is eager to overcome the crisis, so the funds can finally be used to improve the citizens' lives. After several minutes of searching, the soldiers finally discover the oil. Ryan quickly rushes over to inspect it himself. He opens the barrel and smiles, sensing that the city now holds a real chance of survival. Meanwhile, at the Orvis military camp, Eldrick and Raven return to report their failed mission to Duke Castile. Castile remarks that he expected failure, but did not anticipate such incompetence. He is astonished they could not hold the city for even 3 days. Eldrick explains that Ran resorted to a forbidden technique to destroy the city walls, which caused their defeat. The mention of forbidden magic sparks Castile's curiosity, leading him to suspect Alderian sent a mage to guard his youngest son. Raven smirks and assures Castile there is no cause for concern because the forbidden spell cannot be used repeatedly. He adds that the rain has already ruined the city walls, making quick repairs impossible. Castile snaps that he needs no guidance since he is far from incompetent. He dismisses Raven, telling him to return to the Orvis Empire and await further developments. Displeased, Raven reminds Castile that they orchestrated everything together and questions what he means by sending him away. Castile bluntly informs him that he has been expelled. He then tosses a scroll toward Raven. Upon opening it, Raven discovers it is an official warrant for his arrest. Before he can react, Castile commands his guards to seize him. Once Raven is dragged away, Castile turns to Eldrick and asks what punishment he deserves. Eldrick drops to his knees pleading for mercy, claiming he holds a secret that could greatly benefit the Orvis Empire. The promise of such a secret captures Castile's attention, and he is eager to hear more. Back at Thurland City's main hall, Ryan's older sister Priscilla receives a letter sent in his name. Though in truth it was penned by Lee, Priscilla smiles at the thought of her brother writing to her, but her expression changes as she reads the contents. She becomes furious and immediately orders her maid Gwen to summon Vilas, Caesar's brother. Vilas arrives at once in response to the summon. Without hesitation, Priscilla accuses him of attempting to incite a rebellion. Still, Vilas insists the accusation is false, claiming he would never commit such an act. Furious, Priscilla hurls the letter at him and snaps that he should verify its contents himself. In Lee's message to Priscilla, she spoke about Vilas, pointing out that his brother is nothing but a rebellious troublemaker. Once he finishes going through the contents of the letter, Priscilla questions him, asking whether he has anything to argue in his own defense. Trembling slightly, Vilas explains that Caesar's actions were his own and had no connection to the Hulker family. He adds that he even sent Caesar a letter, instructing him to follow Ryan's guidance carefully. After listening closely, Priscilla senses that his tone and expressions seem sincere rather than deceitful. Vilas pleads with her to grant his household an opportunity to demonstrate their faithfulness. Priscilla inquires about the kind of chance he is requesting, responds that he will have his daughter, Rosalind, command troops to fight against Castile's forces. Priscilla is taken aback, noting that Rosalind has only just reached adulthood, and warns that if something happens to her, the Hulker line will have no successor. Vilas declares that his family is prepared to give up everything if it secures Priscilla's approval. He admits they would have perished long ago if not for Priscilla's support and begs for a chance to prove their devotion. Priscilla instructs Gwen to assign someone to secretly watch over Rosalind. She warns that any misconduct will result in immediate execution. Before long, Castile's army reaches the outskirts of Iceland City, accompanied by Eldrick. Eldrick points out a weak section of the city's defenses, assuring Castile it would be simple to breach from there. Yet the wall has been restored, and Eldrick realizes Ryan likely used magic to repair it, and even seems to be constructing a moat. Castile bursts into laughter, mocking Ryan as a fool for wasting valuable magical energy on rebuilding a wall. Eldrick, however, grows uneasy and questions why Castile appears so pleased. Castile explains that fortifications matter only when geography favors defense, noting that the nearby plain with a river poses little obstacle to an advancing army. He remarks that Ryan might have stood a chance if he had preserved his mages' strength. By squandering their power on repairs, Castile believes Ryan has sealed his own defeat. Eldrick is astonished by this reasoning and showers Castile with praise, calling him exceptionally wise. Soldier suggests they need not assault the fortress directly and proposes surrounding it to cut it off instead. Castile glares at the man and coldly asks whether he doubts his ability to seize the fortress outright. The soldier immediately kneels, apologizing and clarifying that he merely hopes to minimize casualties during the siege. Castile replies that death is expected in war and adds that many of their troops are inexperienced, making this a suitable test of their abilities. He urges his army to advance so Ryan can witness their strength and perhaps surrender without resistance. Meanwhile, Ryan sits in his chamber, studying a system quest that requires him to nurture 5 high-potential individuals. He is frustrated that the task has lingered for over 2 weeks without any clear solution. He enters to inform him that Castile and his mage are waiting outside the city gates to meet him. Ryan rises from his seat to confront Castile. Castile announces he is offering Ryan a chance to surrender and begins listing his conditions. Ryan instead turns to a guard and mockingly asks whether the man before him is truly the Grand Duke of Orvis, prompting laughter from the soldiers. Lee confirms calmly that Castile indeed holds the Duke's title. Enraged by the insult, Castile fumes and remarks that even Ryan's father treated him with courtesy. Ryan dismisses his theatrics and demands to know his true purpose. Castile shouts that Ryan must surrender or face a massacre that will drench the city in blood. Ryan coolly responds that he too has an offer to make. He advises Castile to retreat now if he values his life. Castile scoffs at Ryan's boldness. He boasts that he commands nearly 100,000 troops. He threatens to unleash them upon the city unless Ryan submits immediately. Seeing that Castile will not stop talking, Ryan orders Lee to give him a warning. Lee complies without hesitation. She swiftly hurls a dagger toward Castile. His mage desperately conjures a barrier to intercept it. The blade slices cleanly through the magical shield. It grazes Castile's cheek. The dagger narrowly avoids striking his eye. Ryan informs him that this was merely a warning, and the next strike will not miss. Humiliated and furious, Castile storms back to his camp. At the same moment, Ryan instructs Selena to ready the troops for an immediate strike. Castile reaches his encampment. He commands his general to prepare the army for an instant assault, determined to avenge the insult. One advisor reminds him the soldiers have marched for 3 straight days and suggests waiting until they are rested. This advice only deepens Castile's anger. He insists that 3 days of travel is nothing to complain about. The advisor argues they must at least construct bridges before attacking. The troops quietly support their spokesman. Castile refuses to reconsider. He claims that swiftness determines victory in warfare. He issues a firm order for an immediate offensive. Back in the barracks, the soldiers are relaxing and chatting cheerfully. They assume a hearty dinner awaits them that night. Their expectations shatter when the commander orders them to assemble for battle. Shocked, they protest that they have been marching for days and expected food before fighting. The commander rebukes them, reminding them that obedience is their duty. Soon the troops rush toward the city walls. Ryan's officer asks when they should begin firing at the attackers. Ryan questions whether any of his men have previously faced the Empire. One soldier steps forward and confirms that he has. Ryan asks why the approaching forces look exhausted and malnourished. The soldier explains that they seem to be fresh recruits and likely have not been properly fed. This revelation stuns Ryan, who cannot believe Castile would neglect his own army. The soldier suggests Castile may be sacrificing novices as expendable troops. The role is essentially to die and weaken the city's defenses. Outraged, Ryan demands to know why Castile would act so ruthlessly. The soldier replies that few nobles care for their people as Ryan and his father do. Ryan's anger flares, and he resolves to fight without restraint. His commander notes they have sufficient arrows and asks when to commence the attack. Ryan surprises him by ordering them to hold fire. The enemy draws nearer. Ryan instructs Selena to have all mages cast cold wind spells. Selena immediately carries out the command. Castile smirks, convinced Ryan is making a foolish move. His general asks what he means. Castile explains he deliberately sent rookies to drain Ryan's arrows, yet Ryan wasted magical energy instead. He tells his general that once Ryan exhausts his mages, he will unleash his own magicians and cavalry. His officers laugh, praising his strategy and predicting an easy victory. Castile already envisions Ryan captured and kneeling before him. The recruits glance upward as the spell manifests overhead. Panic spreads among them, and they begin to flee. When Selena's spell eventually dissipates, Commander berates the troops and orders them to regroup and charge again. Selena looks toward Ryan. He asks whether the basic cold wind spell will be sufficient to drive the enemy back. Selena suggests that lightning magic might prove far more effective. Ryan reassures Selena, telling her there is no need for concern. He explains that throughout history, hunger and freezing temperatures have always shattered an army's morale. Ryan points out that the Empire's troops are exhausted and in no condition to mount a proper assault. On the battlefield, the soldiers tremble uncontrollably and plead to retreat because they can no longer continue. Their captain roars at them, hurling insults and calling them useless. He orders them to grab their weapons and press the attack. The soldiers protest that the bitter cold has numbed their hands, and their empty stomachs leave them too weak to even lift their arms. They suggest falling back, and the captain sends a report to Castile, yet still commands them to keep advancing regardless of their state. A messenger rushes to Castile, to relay the desperate situation at the front. Inside, the soldier fumes at the thought that they are starving and freezing, while Castile remains comfortable. He informs Castile that Ryan's cold wind spell has crippled their advance, and that the troops, weakened by hunger and frost, can barely hold their weapons, urging a temporary retreat. Castile explodes in anger, branding them cowards. He declares they are unworthy of calling themselves soldiers of the Orvis Empire. The soldier insists they are simply too weak from starvation, but Castile orders his execution for daring to argue. Castile then proclaims he will personally lead the assault. His general advises against risking himself, reminding him that the troops are meant to fight in his stead. Castile replies that he trusts their loyalty, but wants them to witness his brilliance firsthand. He mounts his horse, preparing to spearhead the charge. He commands the mages to form a bridge across the river. This will allow the army to cross without delay. After the bridge is finished, Castile orders a full advance and promises riches to whoever captures Ryan alive. As the troops sprint toward the wall, Ryan's soldiers alert him to the incoming assault. Ryan instructs Lee to release their prepared substance into the moat. He also orders that every access point around the moat be sealed off. He confirms she understands. The soldiers begin pouring oil through concealed pipes. Attackers remain unaware. Oil spreads quietly into the river, the very river they are attempting to cross. At the same time, Rosalind advances toward the city. She knows her family's future rests on her actions. After marching relentlessly for 3 days, one of her officers suggests resting the horses before they collapse. Rosalind asks how long it will take to reach Iceland if they maintain their pace. He estimates they can arrive within a single day. Rosalind orders her mage to project a map so she can examine alternate routes. She deduces that Orvis has likely forced Ryan to remain trapped within the city. Suddenly, she reins in her horse. She calls out to Knox, the mage shadowing her, demanding he reveal himself to discuss strategy. Soldiers are startled when a man materializes from thin air. The captain quickly commands the troops to shield Rosalind. Rosalind halts them, signaling that no action is needed. Knox calmly tells her to state her intentions. She points to a location on the map where she intends to intercept the Empire's forces from behind and capture them, acknowledging that Priscilla sent Knox to monitor her, but requesting his assistance. Knox replies that his orders are to eliminate her if she strays, not to aid her in any plan. Rosalind says she understands, yet reminds him they all want Ryan safe. Knox asks what role she expects him to play. Rosalind reveals she plans to bypass Iceland and strike the Empire's army from the rear. She wants Knox to dam the upper moat near the border fortress and await her mage's signal. Once the signal comes, Knox must release the stored water to flood and drown the Empire's troops. In Varshala, homeland of the elves, the Elven Queen receives Ryan's proposal. Some advisors argue that humans are manipulative and unreliable partners. The Queen counters that they cannot sustain their entire population without outside support. She asks Yuria to share her perspective, since she has visited the city personally. Yuria praises Ryan as an exceptionally capable leader. She explains that he secured enough provisions for a year and significantly reduced their expenses. A general expresses surprise that such a remarkable man exists among humans. Another elf disputes this, noting reports that the city is once again embroiled in war. He says they will only consider the proposal if Ryan survives the conflict, prompting Yuria's protest. Queen clarifies that his survival is essential anyway, if any agreement is to be honored. She decides to witness the battle personally. On the walls, Ryan commands his archers to fire to prevent the enemy from advancing further. Tells Selena they must ensure Castile leads from the front. Ryan says their strategy works only once, so Castile cannot be allowed to escape. Soon, enemy soldiers begin scaling the walls. Castile cheers, believing victory is at hand. He orders his troops to pursue and seize Ryan. When Ryan sees Castile crossing the bridge, he signals Selena to execute their final move. The guards near Ryan close ranks around him to block any attackers. Ryan shouts toward Selena. He commands her to launch a fireball into the moat immediately. Selena confirms and acts at once. She hurls a blazing fireball toward Castile's direction. Castile assumes he is the target and orders a magical barrier to intercept it. He mocks the move as a desperate attempt and tells his men to endure. The mages raise a massive shield. One officer warns that Ryan may have a hidden scheme and be baiting them into wasting magic. Castile laughs, claiming someone like Ryan could not devise a clever plan. He believes the earlier cold wind spell drained Ryan's mages. He assumes these fireballs are their final reserves. Castile insists that blocking them guarantees victory. Unbeknownst to him, the fireballs have already landed in the moat. He ridicules Ryan, saying even a basic fire spell failed to hit its mark. The troops cheer and hail Castile as a legendary strategist. Boasting proudly, Castile calls himself one of the Empire's twin pillars, but before he can finish, the moat suddenly ignites in a massive blaze. Sight leaves Castile and his men in shock. Castile struggles to comprehend how Ryan orchestrated this. He is bewildered, having never witnessed such forbidden sorcery. The raging inferno sends the soldiers into chaos. Castile realizes too late that his entire army is trapped by flames and faces annihilation. He grudgingly admits Ryan's brilliance borders on wicked genius. In his mind, Ryan now resembles a devil, attempting to incinerate 100,000 men. As his troops burn, his commander urges retreat, and this time Castile finally agrees. He orders the mages to extinguish the flames so they can withdraw. The situation worsens when the mages admit their mana is completely depleted, explaining that their final reserves were spent on the barrier, leaving Castile nearly fainting as he realizes they are finished. Meanwhile, Selena marvels at Ryan's brilliance, wondering how he orchestrated everything without relying on magic. As desperate cries for help echo from the burning troops, Ryan calmly walks away and tells Selena the remainder of the fight is in her hands. Selena immediately commands her mages to push back the remaining attackers. One loyal soldier manages to drag Castile safely through the flames, yet upon reaching their camp, find not a single guard on duty, which leaves them utterly confused. Out of nowhere, a massive blade descends from above, nearly skewers Castile where he stands. He collapses backward and demands to know the identity of the girl who suddenly appeared. Ignoring his panic, Rosalind states she has been searching for him for quite some time. Castile scrambles away, nervously asking what she intends to do. Rosalind questions him about the whereabouts of his main army and whether Ryan remains unharmed. He draws out a whip, threatening to lash him mercilessly until he quickly blurts out an answer. He claims his primary forces were incinerated by Ryan's forbidden spell. Castile protests that as a Grand Duke, he cannot be treated so disrespectfully. Rosalind shouts at him, convinced he is lying about the battle's outcome. She orders her soldiers to seize him and beat him until he confesses the truth. After hours of relentless punishment, her men report that Castile still insists his army perished at the border fortress. Rosalind grows increasingly irritated. She commands them to continue until he speaks honestly, then instructs the troops to rest and prepare for a full assault at dawn to aid Ryan. In her mind, Rosalind considers various battle formations to reach the city and draw out any remaining enemies. Suddenly, they sense a presence nearby, prompting her to raise everyone's guard. She calls out, ordering whoever is hiding to reveal themselves. For astonishment, Ayuria and several elves emerge in the distance. Rosalind immediately suspects the elves may be allied with the Orvis Empire. She openly accuses them of betrayal. The elves respond that it was Ryan who requested an audience with their queen. Rosalind refuses to accept this explanation and continues to label them as collaborators. Offended by her words, the proud elves prepare for combat as Rosalind's forces brace themselves. The tension nearly explodes before the elven queen steps forward. She confirms that Ryan himself invited them. She adds that if Rosalind stands with Ryan, there is no need for conflict, but if she opposes him, they will withdraw and return after her battle concludes. Rosalind demands proof of their claim. Ayuria presents Ryan's handwritten letter as evidence. Recognizing the authentic family seal, Rosalind is taken aback since it cannot be forged. She agrees to trust them temporarily until she meets Ryan, warning that they will be monitored closely. The Elven Queen smiles and accepts the condition. Rosalind orders her troops to proceed as planned without altering their strategy. She instructs her captain to keep watch over the elves to prevent any complications. An elven maiden questions why the queen still seeks partnership with Ryan despite human distrust. The queen calmly replies that blind trust would not be human nature. Still, she hopes Ryan fulfills his promises since the elves' future hinges on this alliance. The following day, Rosalind and her army advance toward Iceland. Scouts report that the city's banner remains unchanged, suggesting no takeover. Rosalind begins to suspect that Castile may have spoken the truth. Nevertheless, she refuses to rely on rumors and presses forward to see for herself. Nearing the border, she orders her men to raise their flag to signal reinforcements. She commands them not to halt, determined to enter the city swiftly. At the same time, Ryan surveys the damaged walls. He regrets that so many capable men died, thinking they could have contributed to rebuilding efforts. He looks both surprised and impressed. She did not expect him to feel sorrow over fallen enemies. She tells him the invaders deserved their fate, and he is about to explain himself when a soldier reports cavalry approaching from the Empire's direction. The banner they carry belongs to Priscilla, leaving Ryan stunned. Later, Ryan meets the Elven Queen to discuss the city's future prospects. He promises that with her investment, she will be remembered as a founding figure of a legendary metropolis. Queen admits the proposal is intriguing. However, she notes that elves live in harmony with nature and thrive without such ambitions. Ryan continues trying to persuade her. She stands firm, claiming human cravings mean little to elves. He reminds him that countless empires collapsed under the weight of unchecked desire. Ryan agrees, but argues that desire also fuels innovation and progress. He cites humanity's wish to fly as the reason airplanes were created. He mentions their urge to explore oceans led to submarines. Their dream of reaching space resulted in spacecraft. He assures her that one day she will stand atop towering structures and feel unmatched fulfillment. The Queen listens in confusion, unfamiliar with such inventions. He acknowledges his confidence, but emphasizes that elves have resisted desire for millennia and questions whether commerce can truly change them. Ryan insists transformation is possible if she commits to the investment and embraces a new future. His mention of a grand destiny captures her interest. She wonders if this path could avert the dark prophecy she once foresaw. So impressed by his eloquence, she says his words alone are insufficient and she must consult her people. Ryan agrees and tells her he will welcome her support whenever she decides, and hands her a special VIP invitation. It is for the inauguration of the Eichling City Dam. He encourages her to attend and witness the city's first industrial milestone. When Rosalind learns that Ryan is unharmed, he is astonished, knowing the Empire deployed nearly 100,000 troops. She begins to believe Castile's account, though she pushes aside distractions and focuses ahead. Priority is to hurry back to Rainside. Shortly afterward, she enters the city. She is escorted directly to Ryan. Rosalind bows respectfully and explains she was sent by his sister. He apologizes for failing to arrive sooner. Ryan is surprised to hear his elder sister dispatched assistance. He asks why she approached from the Empire's side. Rosalind replies that she feared he had abandoned the border fortress. Therefore, she detoured to cut off the enemy's retreat. Ryan is amazed. She traveled hundreds of kilometers in 3 days and jokingly asks how she managed without a railroad. Confused by the unfamiliar term, she says nothing, and he waves it off while praising her efforts. Rosalind insists it was routine for the Hulker family, though her uncle caused Ryan some trouble. Ryan is startled again upon realizing she is related to Caesar. Rosalind pleads for another opportunity for her family. She offers herself for any punishment he deems appropriate without complaint. Ryan remains silent and quietly exits the room. A day later, Rosalind remains confined to the same room. Her spirits sink as she becomes convinced her family is doomed because of Caesar's blunder. Before long, Ryan arrives. He apologizes for the delay and notices the stiffness in her posture. He gently tells her to relax, explaining that he only wishes to discuss a matter. Rosalind anxiously wonders what he intends to say. Then Ryan suddenly asks if she would consider joining his side. Her face instantly turns crimson. Unknown to her, Ryan has already examined her attributes. Discovered her loyalty stands at a perfect 100%, along with exceptional sword mastery and the trait of bravery. Ryan praises her as someone with remarkable potential. Rosalind shyly thanks him for his kind words. He once again asks whether she is willing to belong to his ranks. Lowering her head, she says that if he seeks compensation for his displeasure, she is prepared to offer everything she has. Ryan suddenly realizes she has completely misinterpreted his meaning. He quickly clarifies that she has misunderstood him. Still confused, Rosalind drops to her knees, declares she will abandon her dream of knighthood and even sacrifice herself if that is the price for her family's wrongdoing. Ryan firmly repeats that he merely wants her to serve under him as a subordinate. She looks puzzled and asks what he truly means. Ryan explains he simply wishes her to join his forces and assures her that Caesar's actions will not condemn her or her family. Seeing she still seems lost, he formally asks whether she would serve him as a knight. Overjoyed, Rosalind realizes he never intended to demean her. Since becoming a knight has always been her dream, she eagerly accepts. Afterward, Ryan drafts a letter to her elder sister. In it, he explains the danger has passed and commends Rosalind as an outstanding knight. He instructs Lee to send the message along with an invitation to the dam's completion ceremony, and she complies. Ryan then returns to worrying about how to recruit more capable individuals quickly. So far, Rosalind is the only promising talent he has secured. Lee reminds him that Castile, captured earlier, still awaits judgment, and Ryan realizes he nearly forgot. She informs him that the Grand Duke is locked in the city dungeon. Ryan decides to visit the imprisoned noble. Castile spits insults at him, calling him vile and predicting his downfall. Ryan coolly reminds him who is actually behind bars. Castile rages that forbidden spellcasters are banned from interfering in ordinary wars. Accuses Ryan of breaking this law and warns that forbidden mages across the continent will seek revenge. Ryan asks if he means Selena. Castile denies it, saying she is merely a high-level mage and referring instead to the one who unleashed devastation. Ryan finally understands he is referring to the oil explosion and explains that it was no forbidden spell and can be replicated at will. Castile insists only a forbidden mage could wield such destructive force, claiming such power could end the world. Ryan grows weary of the debate and tells him to label it however he likes since it has already happened. He then reveals the true reason for his visit. He demands to know who stands behind Castile and what scheme is unfolding. Castile denies any hidden agenda, claiming the Orvis warriors merely seek to subdue the so-called Corridorial Empire, which makes Ryan laugh. Ryan points out that records show annual invasions every spring where towns are seized. Yet they never hold territory or station troops, always retreating in autumn as though compelled. Ryan argues that such behavior contradicts Castile's claims and hints at ulterior motives. Castile argues the lands are barren and unworthy of occupation, saying their aim is simply to display imperial strength. Ryan presses him, asking if they are conducting some hidden experiment. Castile nervously denies knowing anything of the sort. Ryan tells him to reflect on it while he rots behind bars. Leaving the cell, Ryan becomes certain a deeper conspiracy lies behind the annual assaults. He resolves to accelerate industrial development in response. 10 days pass before Priscilla receives Ryan's letter. He informs her of his decision to recruit Rosalind as his subordinate. Priscilla tells Gwen to reassure Vilas that his daughter has gained Ryan's favor. She then asks Gwen what a dam is, since the invitation mentioned one. Gwen admits ignorance, as neither of them understands the term. Priscilla suggests visiting Ryan's territory to see it firsthand. She also instructs Gwen to find girls Rosalind's age, curious about her brother's preferences. News of Castile's capture reaches the Orvis Emperor, who convenes his council. Craven warns that if Castile reveals secrets it could spell disaster, while another official criticizes his recklessness. The Emperor cuts them off with a furious shout. He demands solutions rather than complaints. An official proposes sending envoys to Iceland to negotiate. Others object, arguing their mighty empire should not stoop to a mere city. Craven insists that exposure of their secrets would be far worse. He urges the Emperor to decide wisely. The Emperor admits he can consider peace talks, but asks who will lead them. He stresses the envoy must possess both courage and intelligence. His gaze falls on Craven's expression. He orders Craven to recommend a candidate. Craven proposes Wilvena, Duke Richard's daughter. The chamber erupts, reminding him that Richard was recently imprisoned for defying the throne. Secretly, the Emperor is pleased because she is exactly who he had in mind. Pretending skepticism, he asks Craven to justify the choice. Craven lists her noble birth as proof of sincerity. He adds that despite her youth, she is eloquent and perceptive. Lastly, he argues she can redeem her father's crimes by succeeding in this mission. Faced with his reasoning, the officials reluctantly agree. The Emperor entrusts the matter to Craven. He instructs him to ensure Wilvena's safety during the journey. Once the meeting concludes, the Emperor privately summons an assassin. He orders him to eliminate Wilvena and Castile after their release. He sees this as the perfect excuse to launch war against Corridorial. Meanwhile, Ryan strolls through the streets with Lee. Citizens greet him warmly, thanking him for lifting them from a life of misery. Ryan smiles and waves in acknowledgement. His true purpose for being outside is to scout for exceptional talent as required by the system. Yet everyone he meets seems ordinary. He has searched for days without finding a single candidate worthy of the title. He briefly considers requesting help from his siblings, but he remembers they have their own burdens. Besides, his sister already sent Rosalind, so he cannot ask for more. Lee notices the fatigue in Ryan's expression. She advises him to take a break since he has spent 3 straight days searching for talent. He explains that she has already posted notices everywhere to inform anyone interested in working under him. Ryan admits that while some applicants would make decent factory hands, none stand out beyond that. Also recalls that production cannot begin until the elves invest, and the dam itself still needs about a month to finish. He once considered teaching chemistry to the mages, but quickly realized it could lead to disastrous consequences. Overwhelmed, Ryan rests his head against Lee's stomach, lamenting that the system assigned him such a stressful mission. He grumbles about how exhausting his life has become. Just then, he overhears a merchant arguing with someone claiming to be an alchemist. The name Armando catches his ear, prompting him to turn and examine the man. Ryan scans him and is stunned to see Armando possesses impressive statistics. A broad grin spreads across his face because he has finally discovered the kind of talent he has been seeking. Armando tries persuading a vendor that his potion is worth every coin. Shopkeeper shouts back, accusing him of deception. He reminds Armando that a previous insect repellent cost him a crate of apples. Armando argues that it failed only because it was unsuitable for delicate fruit. Merchant shoves him out, refusing to hear another word. Ryan becomes even more intrigued, surprised such a gifted individual is stuck in this setting. Lee notices Ryan's growing interest in the alchemist. He prepares to intervene before he does something reckless. Armando kneels on the ground, pondering his next move. Ryan steps in front of him, states that he wants to purchase one of his potions. Armando beams, thinking he has found an easy target. He quickly lays out several bottles and asks which one Ryan prefers. Ryan inquires about his identity and why he rarely appears in town. Armando introduces himself as an alchemist who seldom visits the city. He boasts that he can brew any potion to meet Ryan's desires. Lee quietly warns Ryan not to trust alchemists because they often deceive people. Ryan reassures her that it is unclear who would outsmart whom. He gestures to the potions and asks their price. Armando proudly presents one that makes objects glow in the dark. Other potion supposedly increases running speed. He even displays one hinting at enhancing romantic experiences. Ryan dismisses them as inferior and demands to see something truly worthwhile. Offended, Armando tells him not to underestimate his craft. He softens when he notices Lee's intimidating glare. Ryan demonstrates his knowledge by analyzing the glowing potion, pointing out its toxic and inefficient composition, and suggesting a superior alternative. Armando is stunned and demands to know how Ryan uncovered his formula. He insists the recipe is secret and known only to him, causing Ryan to laugh. Ryan replies that the ingredients are basic chemistry and hardly a guarded secret. Armando counters angrily, accusing him of spying on his notes. Ryan retorts that reading the work of an alchemist who cannot even sell his potions would be pointless. He offers to teach Armando genuine alchemical science if he swears allegiance. Shocked, Armando demands to know who he is. Lee announces that he stands before the new lord of the city, Ryan. Armando declares he would rather starve than serve a noble. Ryan senses deep resentment toward aristocrats. Armando tries to conceal it. His hostility is obvious. Lee angrily orders him to apologize immediately. Armando refuses, challenging her to act. He nearly loses her temper before Ryan stops her. Ryan calmly says he does not care what nobles did to him in the past. Instead, he offers him a choice. Promises advanced knowledge of chemistry and physics that could revolutionize the world. Alternatively, Armando can waste his days struggling in obscurity. His statement only angers Armando further. He insists nobles care only about themselves and will never earn his trust. Ryan notices Armando's loyalty score drop sharply and realizes he has worsened the situation. Armando proclaims he will never trust a noble's words. Suddenly, his sister Yelena calls out to him. He rushes to embrace her. He urges her to leave, claiming the place is unsafe, and she asks why. Armando warns her that Ryan is a cruel noble. Yelena spots Ryan and runs toward him, surprising Armando. Even Ryan is taken aback and asks if she recognizes him. Smiling brightly, she says her mother credits Ryan for their improved life. Ryan realizes her father worked on the dam project. Armando accuses Ryan of exploiting the citizens. Ryan asks how he reached such a conclusion. Armando points to Yelena's worn clothing as proof of oppression and claims nobles never change. He angrily defends Ryan, praising his compassion. Yelena also scolds her brother, insisting Ryan is a benevolent lord. She explains he provided jobs and shelter to prevent hunger and cold. Armando tells her she does not understand the truth. Ryan clarifies that clothing shortages stem from undeveloped light industry. He assures that once industry expands, citizens will enjoy better garments. Armando scoffs, claiming nobles only seek profit. He storms off, warning Yelena to beware, while she stomps angrily. Ryan feels torn as the valuable talent walks away. Just as he moves to follow him, piercing headache strikes. He collapses, and Armando and Lee rush to assist. When Ryan regains consciousness, he finds himself back in his castle. Lee stands beside him, visibly anxious. He reassures her that he feels fine. Lee says he overexerted himself, leading to the collapse. Ryan squeezes her hand, apologizing for the worry, then asks about Armando. Lee explains he returned after Ryan fainted. Ryan is surprised by this gesture. Lee adds that Armando left medicine for him before departing. Ryan asks whether that remedy reduced his fever. Lee replies she did not use it since its source was uncertain. She says a city physician treated him instead and left the potion untouched. Ryan asks to examine the medicine, and Lee brings it. He observes that its appearance seems expertly crafted. After smelling it, he says he will consult a doctor tomorrow about its quality. Lee wonders if he truly intends to recruit someone who despises nobles. Ryan confirms he wants Armando because his ability marks him as a rare genius. Still, the biggest issue is his intense hatred toward nobles, and it would help immensely to understand what caused such deep resentment. At the same time, resting atop Armando's work desk, sits a photograph of him beside an elderly woman. It is clear from the way he handles it that the image and the person captured in it mean the world to him. As he gazes at the photo, Armando murmurs softly, speaking as though the woman in the picture can hear him. He talks about encountering a noble who could decipher an alchemical formula instantly. He also notes that Yelena seems fond of that man. Even so, he stubbornly insists that nobles are corrupt by nature. The woman in the photograph turns out to be his mentor. Armando has resolved to finish the research his teacher began and to seek justice on her behalf. Loathing for the aristocracy runs so deep that he intends to make them answer for the past. To understand the root of it all, we must return 15 years earlier, when Liesl Grant, Armando's mentor, reigned as the finest alchemist in Iceland City. Liesl possessed extraordinary talent in alchemy and carried strong ideals. She believed alchemy existed to serve the people, not to empower the elite. She eventually took in a young orphan named Armand, raising him both as her adopted son and devoted apprentice. She passed down all her knowledge, from brewing elixirs to crafting intricate machinery, and she also taught him the importance of compassion and ethics. It seems her groundbreaking studies displeased a certain nobleman who barged into her home accompanied by armed guards. He seized all her research materials and falsely accused her of practicing forbidden alchemy. Not long after, Liesl perished in what appeared to be a staged accident. Armando was merely 15 when his mentor passed away. Afterward, he gathered every scrap of her notes and unfinished experiments, determined to see her work completed. Upon hearing Armando's painful history from Ayuria, he admits it is deeply moving. Yet despite that, it offers no solution to his current dilemma. His main concern is discovering Armando's whereabouts. Ayuria yells at him to show some compassion. Ryan coolly answers that sympathy cannot feed anyone nor resolve practical issues. He insists that life must continue forward regardless of tragedy. Ayuria explains that Armando likely went to Liesl's former residence, a place he visited constantly. She adds that he goes not only for the research notes, but also because her remaining equipment is still kept there. Ryan brightens at the news and proposes they head there to retrieve him, then inquires whether Ayuria knows what Liesl had been studying before her death. Ayuria strains her memory for a moment before. She finally blurts out that it had something to do with steam. Before she can elaborate, Ryan impulsively grabs her, driven by curiosity, pressing her for more information, but she can only recall that it involved steam without further specifics. Ryan tells her that if her guess matches his suspicion, they could revolutionize the entire world. Ayuria looks astonished because she had previously heard the invention described as nothing more than a trivial gadget. Without wasting a second, he seizes her hand and insists she guide him to the machine. In his heart, Ryan is certain that Liesl had been developing a steam engine. He suspects she may have left behind blueprints and experiment logs. Since he once considered steam engines outdated, he never studied them deeply in his previous life. Nevertheless, as a trained mechanical engineer, he instinctively grasps how complex mechanisms function. Though he once wanted to build a steam engine here, he lacked the detailed plans and crucial insights needed to do so. He is convinced that accessing Liesl's documents could grant him the breakthrough he seeks and revive the brilliance of steam technology. With such power, the dawn of an industrial era would follow. Soon after, Ryan reaches Liesl's former home. Inside, Armando is busy tinkering with the steam engine when he catches Ryan's voice approaching and immediately assumes Ryan poses a threat to his master's legacy. He swiftly drapes a cloth over the engine before heading out to confront Ryan. Armando firmly tells Ryan that he has no right to be there. Ryan disregards the warning and strides into the yard, demanding to know where Liesl's notes are kept. Armando hurries after him, insisting he abandon any thought of taking the documents. He makes it clear he will never surrender those papers. Ayuria intervenes, explaining they are not thieves, and that Ryan only wishes to see whether Liesl's writings contain something that could improve people's lives. As Ryan nears the concealed engine, Armando panics and pulls out a knife, warning him. He orders Ryan to step back, declaring that he refuses to deal with nobles. Lee prepares to act when Rains signals her to hold back and let him handle matters. Ryan approaches Armando and bluntly calls him foolish for not understanding what a steam engine truly is, or comprehending its importance. He argues that Armando is squandering Liesl's remarkable research through ignorance. Armando fires back angrily, saying Ryan has no right to preach when he knows nothing about Liesl's studies. Seeing his stubbornness, Ryan proposes they settle things with a wager. Armando demands to know the terms of this supposed bet. Ryan declares that if he can successfully activate Liesl's machine, Armando must serve under him without objection. In return, Ryan promises that failure would mean he leaves the city forever and never returns. Armando scoffs, assuming Ryan is merely joking around. He mocks Ryan, saying he cannot even identify the alchemical vessels, yet boasts about operating Liesel's creation. Unwilling to waste time, Ryan presses him to confirm whether he accepts the wager. Armando agrees, though he insists on additional conditions. He states that if Ryan loses, he must kneel before Liesel's grave to apologize and then depart the city for good. Ayuria attempts to mediate, warning that Armando is going too far since Ryan harbors no ill intent toward him. Armando ignores her and demands a clear answer from Ryan. Ryan calmly accepts, pledging that he will personally apologize to Liesel should he fail. With the agreement settled, Ryan insists on examining the steam engine left behind. In his mind, he already envisions Armando joining him after the engine is repaired. Armando reluctantly pulls away the covering to reveal his master's creation. Ryan feels immense relief upon confirming it is indeed a steam engine. He can barely contain his excitement. He even embraces the machine, proclaiming Liesel a true visionary. He looks puzzled and asks whether Liesel's invention is truly that extraordinary. Ryan assures her that crafting something of this caliber undeniably marks Liesel as a genius. Armando lifts his chin proudly, claiming Liesel stood apart from other alchemists who chased hollow fame. Ryan questions whether Armando has been residing there solely to maintain the device, and Armando confirms it. Still, he admits he does not know how to activate it, because the method was never recorded in Liesel's notes. Ryan announces he will dismantle the casing to inspect for mechanical flaws, prompting Armando to protest that he must not damage it. He fears that if it cannot be reassembled, all of Liesel's hard work will be destroyed. Ryan frowns at such doubt and confidently states there is no machine beyond his ability to repair. He asks Armando for a screwdriver, only to learn that Armando has never heard of one. Ryan stares in disbelief and demands to know how the machine was assembled in the first place. Armando explains that magic aided the construction and that a master dwarf craftsman hired by Liesel put everything together. He adds that the device required immense effort and is far too complex for a pampered noble like Ryan to comprehend. Ryan grows weary of the pointless argument, turns to Lee, and requests one of her daggers, since no screwdriver is available. Taking the dagger, Ryan begins carefully loosening the machine's outer casing. He remarks again on Liesel's brilliance, admiring the elegant construction. Suddenly, he spots concealed components within the structure. He shouts at Armando, demanding to know the whereabouts of those hidden parts. Armando is stunned that Ryan noticed them, as he never expected such awareness. Nevertheless, he feigns ignorance and claims the engine has always been that way, taunting Ryan about conceding defeat. Fed up, Ryan yells that there must be a central core controlling the engine's operation. He insists Armando reveal where those crucial components are. Armando finally admits that a noble forcibly confiscated them. Shocked, Ryan asks why a noble would even desire such parts. Armando explains they were crafted from an exceedingly rare dragon crystal. Once the noble discovered this, he seized them, melted them down, and fashioned a statue of himself. During that, Ryan completely loses his temper. He is furious, unable to accept that someone would ruin such vital components just to glorify himself. Anger surges through him as he demands the identity of the noble responsible. Armando hesitates, warning that the noble holds immense power and that challenging him would be unwise. That warning only fuels Ryan's temper, as he believes no aristocrat is beyond his reach. He orders Armando to speak, eager to see who dares interfere with his plans for industrial reform. Armando finally reveals that the culprit is Duke Oscar. Ayuria gasps in disbelief at the name. Ryan turns to her and asks what she knows about this Duke Oscar. Ayuria explains that Oscar once ranked among the lesser nobles in the city. His accomplishments in alchemy earned the emperor's favor, and as a result, he was granted vast resources. Eventually, he was elevated to Duke and awarded his own territory. Ryan presses further, asking where this territory lies. Ayuria answers that it is located in Gransel, in the northeastern region of Iceland City. He adds that Gransel falls under Grand Duke Tellerose Elroy's domain, placing it outside the Edgar family's authority. Ryan recalls his father mentioning strained relations with Elroy. He confirms that the two hold opposing political views and have clashed repeatedly within the Imperial Council. Ryan decides to postpone dealing with that complication for now, yet makes it clear that Duke Oscar has earned a permanent place on his blacklist. Ryan vows that Oscar will answer for destroying those precious gears. Ayuria grows uneasy and asks if he truly intends to confront Oscar, reminding him how dangerous the Duke is. Ryan shrugs off the warning, insisting that anyone who dares destroy such invaluable work must face consequences. Armando is stunned that Ryan would seriously consider opposing Oscar. Ryan reassures him that there is nothing to fear. He promises to get the engine running and prove its worth to Oscar, Ryan then asks whether Liesel left any schematics of the core in her notebooks. Armando answers that sadly she did not record the design in her alchemy journal. Still, she had discussed the component's creation with a dwarven master smith. Ryan asks if that dwarf understands the engine, and Armando confirms he does. However, the craftsman has refused to meet him. Ryan pats his shoulder and says he will attempt to speak with the dwarf himself, though Armando doubts success given the dwarf's fiery temper. As anticipated, Ryan arrives at the dwarf's workshop, only to be dismissed immediately, with Bram refusing to entertain them, despite Ayuria arguing that Ryan has contributed greatly to the city. Bram scoffs, claiming he sees nothing extraordinary in Ryan's deeds because, from his perspective, Ryan merely eliminated a few arrogant nobles and resolved a food shortage. To Bram, such actions are simply a lord's basic responsibility. Ayuria falls silent at his blunt words, but Ryan calmly steps forward, agreeing that governing well and feeding his people are indeed expected duties. Explains that fulfilling those obligations is precisely why he seeks Bram's help. Bram finally relents and asks what Ryan wants him to craft. Ryan states he requires the design for the steam engine's gear and would appreciate Bram forging it as well. The instant Bram hears this request, he orders them out, unwilling to provide anything related to it. Ryan questions the reason for his refusal. Bram reveals that those gears led to Liesel's death and blames himself for suggesting dragon ore for safety, which ultimately attracted trouble. Because of that guilt, he swears never to forge such items again. Armando reminds him that he himself claimed a smith's duty is to create tools for others. He accuses the old dwarf of hypocrisy. Bram remains firm, adding that even with dragon crystal ore the gear might fail. Ryan notes the repeated emphasis on dragon crystal ore and asks whether the engine truly requires it. Bram looks puzzled and asks what Ryan is implying. Ryan replies bluntly that he sees no need for such rare material, believing ordinary iron could be forged into suitable gears. Bram snaps back angrily, claiming that liquefying common iron ore is a feat only the ancient dragon race could achieve. Hearing mention of dragons confirms Ryan's earlier suspicions. He asks if the furnace simply lacks sufficient heat to melt iron, but Bram insists no furnace on the continent can reach that temperature. Ryan confidently declares that he can construct one capable of melting iron. Bram is stunned, yet dismisses it as empty boasting. He argues that such a breakthrough would overturn the Empire's entire forging industry. Bram mocks Ryan as a pampered noble with no real knowledge. Ryan suggests ending the insults and proposes that if he can build such a furnace, Bram should help forge the steam components. Reluctantly, Bram agrees, promising assistance if Ryan succeeds. Ryan is pleased to have secured the agreement, yet Bram warns him to disappear quietly if he fails. He steps aside, giving Ryan space to modify the furnace. Ryan studies the furnace carefully and quickly sees it falls short of his needs. He determines that it lacks a secondary air intake, preventing full combustion efficiency. Using a hammer, Ryan strikes the structure. He smashes openings into its side, shocking Ayuria and Armand. Both cry out, demanding to know what he is doing. Armando warns that Bram will never cooperate again after this damage. Ryan assures them he understands his actions. He explains that the holes serve as additional oxygen vents to intensify combustion. He adds that this adjustment will at least double efficiency and raise the temperature high enough to melt iron. Ayuria wonders if such a simple change can truly make that difference. Ryan tells her not to doubt science and urges Bram to test it with fuel, confident the furnace will now melt iron ore. Seeing the holes, Bram angrily tosses aside the iron ore he carried. He rushes to inspect the furnace for damage, berates Ryan for ruining his hard work, and nearly lunges at him. Ryan calms him, insisting the furnace will perform as intended. Bram scoffs, accusing him of treating forging like a childish game. He explains that iron ore's toughness demands extreme heat and believes the added holes will only reduce the furnace's temperature. Ryan urges him to test it first since they already have ore and fuel ready. Bram agrees out of stubborn curiosity, warning that he will thrash Ryan if it fails. He loads the iron ore into the furnace, and moments later, the ore liquefies into molten iron, leaving him speechless. Ayuria and Armando stare in disbelief as well. Armando demands to know what Ryan altered to achieve this. Ryan casually asks Bram how the furnace feels now. Bram can hardly believe what he sees. He asks whether two simple vents truly gave the furnace power to melt iron. Ryan proudly explains that it is basic pneumatic theory and offers to explain further if Bram wishes. Having fulfilled their condition, Ryan asks if Bram will now forge the gears. Bram grudgingly concedes defeat and agrees to craft the gears once more. Still, he worries that Oscar may cause trouble again. Ryan assures him that Oscar will be dealt with, whether he comes first or Ryan seeks him out. Before long, Bram completes the gear. Ryan carries the finished core back to the steam engine, grinning broadly. He realizes this marks the dawn of a new industrial age. Noticing his excitement, Lee asks whether the gear can truly endure the engine's operation. Concern shared by Ayuria stems from worry for his safety. Yuria even suggests waiting, while she consults her clan about obtaining dragon crystal ore. Ryan reassures Ayuria that there is no cause for concern, explaining that Liesel relied on dragon ore only because she lacked deeper mechanical understanding. Armando immediately objects, warning Ryan not to speak disrespectfully about his mentor. Ryan grins and tells Armando to focus on himself, reminding him that once the engine runs, he will have to serve under him, while Armando retorts that Ryan should repair it before bragging. Ryan carefully fits the newly forged gear into the core. He then invites everyone present to witness what he calls a miracle. With the gear secured, Ryan activates the engine. To their amazement, it roars to life, releasing thick steam like a true working engine. Yuria is astonished that Ryan actually succeeded. Armando, meanwhile, becomes overwhelmed with emotion as his teacher's creation finally operates. The sight floods his mind with memories of the past. He recalls how Liesel patiently showed him how to assemble each component. He can still hear her voice telling him that, if the machine functioned properly, it would greatly improve people's lives. Before her death, Liesel entrusted the engine to Armando's care. Armando drops to his knees and cries as he tells his late teacher that her invention is finally alive. Ayuria tries to draw Ryan's attention elsewhere, but he tells her to let Armando release his tears. Ryan explains that Armando is simply venting years of suppressed grief. 3 hours pass before Bram arrives. He admits he never expected Ryan to succeed in repairing the device, since neither Bram nor Ayuria understands its purpose. They ask if the machine's only function is producing steam. Ryan once again launches into an explanation, clarifying that the steam engine is far more than a smoking contraption. He states that it serves as the cornerstone of an industrial civilization. Bram looks puzzled and asks him to clarify. Ryan elaborates that the engine can turn gears, which then drive countless other machines. It can power mills, textile factories, vehicles, and even weapons of war. In short, it is the indispensable heart of technological progress. After hearing this, Ayuria gazes at Ryan with awe, saying his ideas are beyond imagination. Bram concedes that it is impressive, but questions whether it truly changes lives. Ryan tells them they will soon witness its unmatched value without further debate. He declares that he will usher them into the age of industry to demonstrate its strength. While they are still celebrating, Rosalind suddenly appears. She informs Ryan that Priscilla has just arrived in the city. Ryan is thrilled, noting that his sister arrived just in time to see the dam nearing completion. He also intends to discuss investment plans with her. Rosalind adds that Priscilla brought him a special present. Curious and hopeful it might be gold, Ryan eagerly asks what it is. Rosalind crushes his expectations by revealing the gift is a group of young women of marriageable age. Ryan is so stunned he briefly wonders if he misheard her. Soon after, he heads back to the castle, where he meets his sister. They warmly admit missing one another before. Ryan awkwardly brings up the matter of the girls. Priscilla asks if something is wrong, or if they failed to suit his preferences. Ryan clarifies that the issue is not about taste, but that their arrival has caused people to look at him strangely. Priscilla assumes the townsfolk are foolish to disrespect their lord. Privately, Ryan worries that Lee might now see him as a shameless flirt. He confides that Lee's expression toward him has changed from gentle to frighteningly stern. Priscilla laughs, saying that only someone who cares would react that way. Ryan groans, feeling she has only complicated matters instead of helping. He urges her to stop teasing and explain why she brought the girls. Realizing his anxiety, Priscilla admits she acted because of the letter he sent. Ryan is baffled and demands clarification. He produces the letter mentioning Rosalind and says she assumed he wanted options, so she thoughtfully gathered suitable candidates. Ryan is speechless at how thoroughly she misread his intentions. Priscilla laughs at the misunderstanding, but still suggests Rosalind would make an excellent match. She mischievously asks Lee whether she objects to Ryan taking multiple wives. Lee calmly replies that as a maid, she has no authority to interfere in her lord's decisions. He adds that Ryan alone will choose how many wives he desires. Ryan backs her up, telling her to ignore his sister's teasing. Priscilla eventually ends the joke and instructs Gwen to escort the girls away. Later in Ryan's office, he explains that the dam will soon be finished and that it can regulate water, irrigate fields, and even evolve into a hydropower project. Priscilla is baffled and wonders if he is describing some magical formation. Ryan clarifies that the dam can generate power by driving machinery to produce usable energy. She asks whether this plan relates to solving the food crisis he mentioned. Ryan assures her it is a technical system rather than magic. This explanation only deepens her confusion, prompting her to ask where he learned such knowledge. She remarks that he once preferred sword practice over books and wonders what changed. With suspicion in her eyes, she half-jokingly asks what he did to her real brother. Question startles Ryan, reminding him of his strange arrival in this world. He recalls being injured when he first appeared here, likely due to a sword training accident. Realizing he needs a quick explanation, he thinks fast. Ryan smiles and says she is overthinking, explaining that while recovering from severe pain a month ago, he spent his time reading at home and stumbled upon this knowledge. Scylla remembers receiving a letter from Lee about his injury. She asks if the books came from the family library and what they looked like. Ryan quickly presents one of Liesl's notebooks, claiming it resembles what he read. Priscilla takes the notebook and studies it carefully. She admits that it contains unusual and advanced knowledge. Finally reassured, she praises her brother's brilliance. Ryan laughs, saying though he lacks martial skill, he can compensate with learning. Priscilla advises him not to strain himself in sword training, since she knows he tries hard. She embraces him, saying she no longer doubts him. Ryan returns the hug, assuring her he is fine and capable of his achievements. Priscilla smiles and promises to stand by him always. She offers to assist with anything in his territory whenever needed. As she mentioned at first, Ryan seizes the chance. He tells her there is indeed something requiring her help. Surprised, she asks what assistance he needs so soon. Ryan explains he seeks her support in investing in his future city development plans. He is puzzled since he recently seized ample wealth from corrupt nobles. Ryan clarifies that his request is not about funds, but manpower. He explains the city's population has declined drastically from war and disasters, especially among skilled workers and technicians. Priscilla is stunned to realize he is asking her for people. Ryan asks if she can transfer experienced craftsmen, farmers, and administrators to his lands, promising generous treatment and new technological training in return. Priscilla admits Ryan's proposal is promising, yet reminds him that the skilled people he wants are the backbone of her own lands, and asks if he truly expects her to release them so easily. Ryan counters that she already pledged full support and promises that once his city prospers she will share in the rewards. After some thought, Priscilla agrees to send a portion of her people, but insists on seeing tangible progress first. She wants proof that her subjects will not waste their efforts by relocating. Ryan rises confidently and vows to demonstrate the true strength of industrial development. Once the meeting ends, Priscilla tells Gwen that her earlier fears have eased. She had worried her brother might have become a puppet of the Emperor, yet that no longer seems true. Gwen agrees, saying Ryan has always been sharp and diligent, and she believes he will lead the city to prosperity. Priscilla nods, but confesses she still cannot forgive what the Emperor has done. It was the Emperor who poisoned Ryan, crippling his ability to train in martial arts, and Priscilla quietly plans revenge. He instructs Gwen to track down the prince and identify the easiest target to strike. Priscilla is determined to make the Emperor pay. Gwen assures her that handling the matter will not be difficult. Deep inside, Priscilla burns with fury because the Emperor harmed the person she treasures most, and she refuses to let it go. Meanwhile, a caravan of men travels through the forest carrying their cargo. One complains that most of their earnings end up in Eldric's hands, even though he does nothing. Another agrees, pointing out that they risk their lives while Eldric takes the largest share. Leader barks at them to shut up, reminding them that Eldric is still their protector. He says their freedom to move about safely is entirely due to Eldric's backing. At that moment, their scout rushes back with troubling news. Reports that the city now has a new lord, and Eldric is no longer in charge. The leader anxiously demands details. The scout explains that at the city gate, he saw unfamiliar guards who questioned him closely. Even attempted bribes failed, and they asked why he sought entry so late. He lied about visiting relatives to avoid suspicion, and only then learned the city had changed rulers. One thug suggests turning back immediately. Leader replies that there is nowhere safe to retreat. He reminds them the women they carry were promised to Duke Oscar through a deal with Orvis slave traders, and failure means losing 3,000 gold coins and facing Oscar's wrath. Another worries that the new lord might not be easy to handle. Leader believes anyone can be swayed with money, though he laments the thin profit of this trip. Since complications arose, he decides they will rest overnight and disguise themselves as merchants in the morning, transporting fewer women at a time until they blend in. A heavyset member quickly suggests they enjoy themselves during the stop. The others eagerly agree, saying tomorrow is uncertain so they might as well indulge now. The boss consents, but reserves the red-headed girl for himself. Men cheer at the arrangement, and each grabs a captive of his choosing, announcing they will amuse themselves in a nearby cave. Girls plead desperately for freedom, yet the men ignore them, consumed by vile fantasies. They shove and strike the captives before they can proceed further. Sharp voice rings out ordering them to halt. They spin around to see Rosalind glaring with murderous intent, clearly ready to cut them down. Bandits gape at a lone woman confronting them. When she demands their actions, they smirk and claim they are merely enjoying themselves. They even mockingly invite her to join their fun. Taunts only fuel her anger. She strikes one man across the head, splitting his skull instantly. The others panic at the sight, but Rosalind moves without hesitation, driving her spear straight through the obese thug. At that moment, the remaining bandits realize they have chosen the wrong opponent and attempt to flee. They rush toward their leader's tent, screaming for help. The boss emerges to see his men being skewered like meat on spits. He shouts at Rosalind to cease her assault. The surviving bandits crawl to him, begging for rescue. Boss demands to know why she attacks them without provocation. Rosalind gestures toward the bound girls, reminding them of their crime. The leader insists she is mistaken, claiming they are legitimate slave traders under Duke Oscar. Produces an official document bearing Oscar's seal. Hearing the name Oscar, Rosalind recalls something. She remembers Ryan instructing her to watch for anyone from Oscar's lands. He had asked him why she should do so, and he told her she could freely deal with any troublemakers. Bandit Chief attempts to bribe her with gold. Unfortunately for him, luck is not on his side, because Ryan authorized her to handle Oscar's people as she sees fit. Rosalind rebukes the leader for daring to cause chaos in Ryan's domain. He orders the bandits to kneel and beg, promising mercy if they comply. The arrogant leader instead insults her crudely, boasts that she is outnumbered and stands no chance. Seeing they refuse surrender, Rosalind twirls her spear with deadly intent, gives a final warning to yield or suffer the consequences. The leader lunges to attack her, yet she effortlessly knocks him down. The swift spin of her weapon, she then kicks him hard in the chest, sending him flying. He crashes to the ground, unable to rise. Rosalind presses her spear to his throat, warning the others to kneel unless they wish to. Soon her soldiers appear in the distance, asking whether she is unharmed. She commands them to capture the bandits and imprison them until Ryan decides their fate. That evening, Rosalind visits Ryan's office to inform him that she intercepted a caravan from Oscar's territory. Ryan is pleased, surprised she found trouble so quickly. He praises her and inquires about the cargo. Rosalind reports that the caravan was trafficking slaves. They carried a letter bearing Oscar's authorization. This enrages Ryan, since he desperately needs more laborers rather than losing them to slavers. After hearing the full account, Ryan proceeds to the dungeon to confront the captive leader. He remarks sarcastically that the man was bold to conduct such dealings in his lands. The captive smirks and warns Ryan that opposing Oscar invites disaster. He advises cooperation if Ryan wishes to avoid a tragic end. Ryan observes that Eldrick must have worked with them for years, explaining the man's confidence. The man brazenly boasts that they ship countless women to the Orvis Empire each year, and what Ryan witnessed was merely a fraction of their operations. Ryan's interest sharpens as he asks whether more captives are hidden elsewhere and demands their location. The captive mocks him, saying Ryan should kneel if he wants answers, though even that would not guarantee he speaks. Ryan steps close and coldly informs him that his life is already forfeit, and continued defiance will only hasten his burial. Bandit Chief shows no fear, claiming Duke Oscar stands behind him. Ryan reminds him that within these borders, Oscar's name carries no weight. Still, the leader stubbornly insists he will not be intimidated. Seeing words are useless, Ryan orders Lee to demonstrate his resolve. He swiftly draws a dagger and flings it into the man's shoulder, eliciting a scream of agony. He collapses and immediately begs, declaring he is ready to confess. He reveals that an abandoned hunter's hut in the southern woods hides the remaining captives. Ryan instructs Lee to notify Rosalind and assemble the cavalry to rescue the girls. He warns the bandit that deception will result in unbearable consequences. Unbeknownst to Ryan, the leader is steering them into a trap where Oscar's assassins lie in wait. Not long after they reach the cabin, Rosalind confirms the bandits' information appears accurate, as signs indicate the place is indeed occupied. Ryan orders her to position troops to block any escape. Rosalind kicks the door open and enters, revealing cages packed with frightened young girls. Ryan's expression darkens at their condition. He commands Rosalind to free them at once. Just as she steps forward, an arrow whistles toward her head. With swift reflexes, she slices it from the air. She shouts a warning that they have walked into an ambush. Ordering the cavalry to shield Ryan, they form a protective wall. Assassins step from the shadows. The leader announces he recognizes them as Edgar's men. He claims he prefers negotiation over bloodshed. Furious, Rosalind declares there is nothing to discuss with criminals. Ryan restrains her, saying they should hear him out. Assassin explains they have long trafficked slaves for Duke Oscar. He boasts that prime female slaves fetch over 1,000 gold coins, while even lesser ones sell for 100. He proposes that if Ryan cooperates, he will receive annual profit shares. He sweetens the offer by promising attractive girls free of charge. Rosalind bristles at the shameless proposal. Ryan surprises her by calmly asking what amount they offer. The assassin states they can pay 10,000 gold coins each year. Ryan scoffs, asking whether he looks like a pauper. He declares his sister gives him more than that monthly as allowance. The assassin asks what price would satisfy him. Ryan coolly names 100,000 gold coins per month. The assassin is stunned, insisting they do not earn that much in a year. Ryan dismisses negotiations, saying without that sum there is no deal. He orders Rosalind to deal with them accordingly, and she nods. Realizing disaster looms, the assassin attempts to stall, saying they must report back to Oscar. Secretly, he intends to escape and summon Oscar's forces for revenge. He offers to leave 10,000 gold coins as goodwill. Ryan rejects it outright and commands Rosalind to proceed. The assassins scatter in panic as the fight erupts. Their leader orders a retreat toward the mountains. Rosalind signals the archers to fire at the fleeing men. Arrows rain down upon them. In desperation, the assassin conjures a wall of water to shield his group. This momentary defense allows Rosalind to close the distance. She lunges, aiming to cleave him apart. She tells him they already hold the advantage, urging him to accept defeat. The assassin realizes continued fighting means annihilation. Scanning the chaos, he spots a final gamble. Seizing Ryan as a hostage, charges toward Ryan to execute the plan, ordering his men to cover his advance. Rosalind shouts a warning as she sees his target, commanding soldiers to shield Ryan immediately. Yet the assassin reaches Ryan before they can intercept. Just as his blade descends, Lee appears beside Ryan and blasts the attacker away with a powerful strike. He crashes down in a cloud of dust, clutching his head in frustration. Realizing Lee is far from an ordinary servant, still he stubbornly lunges again at Ryan. As expected, Lee sends him flying with a kick. He slams onto the ground and is quickly surrounded. Lee fumes at his audacity to attack her master and charges forward in fury. The assassin seizes the moment since she has stepped away from Ryan, hurling a dagger straight at him. Blade grazes Ryan's arm before he can react. Lee cries out his name in alarm. Ryan tells everyone to remain calm, yet panic spreads as the formation breaks while they rush to shield him. Seeing the gap, the assassin attempts to flee. Rosalind orders troops to secure Ryan and pull him back. She instructs Lee to treat his wound, only to notice Lee has vanished, leaving her bewildered. Assassin leader races through the mountains, hoping to reach Oscar and report the incident. Suddenly, he encounters Priscilla, standing calmly as if expecting him. Startled, he relaxes upon thinking she poses no threat. Priscilla introduces herself, sending chills down his spine. He demands to know why the Duke's daughter is here. Fearing Oscar's crimes have been exposed, Priscilla informs him the soldiers he fought belong to her brother. Realizing Ryan is the Duke's son, terror nearly makes him lose control. Priscilla remarks that the night turned out far better than she had expected. Her comment leaves the man looking puzzled. He approaches him and mentions that her brother has not let her down. According to her, Ryan remains the intelligent and level-headed man who keeps his cool even when dealing with trash like him. However, she makes it clear that she has no desire to hurt him since she is only observing the situation. Still, she warns that he has angered the last person he should ever provoke. Behind the assassin stands Lee, emanating such intense murderous intent that it makes a chill race down his back. He spins around and finds Lee glaring at him with pure hostility. Lee informs him coldly that there is nowhere to flee because he dared to injure her master. Understanding she is deadly serious, the man falls to his knees and pleads for mercy. He then reveals her magic abilities for the very first time. With telekinesis, she hoists the assassin into the air, stunning him as he realizes he cannot draw breath. Before he can even react, his body bursts apart into fragments under the force of Lee's terrifying power. Not a drop of blood touches her, as she erects a magical shield to block the splatter. Once the man is dead, Lee tells Priscilla she must hurry back because Ryan has been hurt. Priscilla replies that she may leave at once. Lee then soars off toward Ryan. Priscilla turns to Gwen and wonders aloud whether Ryan should be warned about the consequences of angering Lee. Gwen emerges from a pocket space, revealing that the household maids are actually extraordinarily powerful. He reassures Priscilla that there is no need for concern, since Lee would never harm Ryan regardless of anything. Priscilla jokes that Gwen makes her brother sound like a villain, but Gwen quickly explains she meant no such thing. Priscilla keeps teasing, implying Gwen might enjoy her time by Ryan's side, and Gwen blushes lightly while asking her to quit it. Priscilla then instructs Gwen to contact Oscar and question whether unemployment has made him reckless. She also sends Oscar a stern message, reminding him of the consequences of crossing her family. Gwen accepts the directive without hesitation. Priscilla resumes her gentle smile and suggests they head back before Ryan notices their absence. When Ryan arrives home, Lee carefully examines his arm, her face filled with worry. He tells her not to fret because it is merely a small cut. Gwen tells him to stay still and announces he is forbidden from leaving the house until he fully recovers. Ryan cups Lee's cheek and repeats that it is only a minor scratch. They share a quiet moment together when Priscilla suddenly hurries into the room to see him. Having heard that he was injured, he rushes to his side and asks whether the wound will interfere with his future plans. Ryan reassures her that it is nothing serious, since it amounts to little more than a scratch. However, Lee disagrees and points out that if the dagger had been slightly off, it might have pierced his heart and cost him his life. Priscilla sides with Lee and scolds Ryan for treating his life so lightly. She then presses him to explain what exactly occurred. Ryan recounts that Rosalind captured several bandits and discovered they were hiding another group of slaves in the forest. He says he led his men there, and when talks collapsed, combat broke out. Through the darkness, he failed to notice a dagger aimed at him, resulting in his shoulder being sliced. Priscilla grows furious, especially since slave trading is outlawed within Edgar territory. Lee adds that their intelligence suggests the bandits were working under Oscar. Priscilla is stunned that Oscar dared commit such crimes on their land. Ryan explains Oscar felt secure because Eldrick acted as his informant, and from what he heard, they profited greatly over the years. Priscilla admits Eldrick has brought endless trouble, then asks what Ryan intends to do about the rescued girls. Ryan says he will speak with them tomorrow and, being short on manpower, is willing to hire those with nowhere else to go, offering basic schooling so they can later work in the city. Priscilla acknowledges that Ryan's idea is wise, as it will strengthen the workforce. She praises him, noting he grows more considerate by the day. With nothing further to address, Priscilla prepares to leave so he can rest, yet admits her concern, and Ryan assures her he understands. After that, she tells Lee that Ryan's care is now in her hands. Lee vows faithfully that she will ensure no one ever harms Ryan again. Priscilla exits to meet Gwen waiting outside. Gwen inquires about Ryan's condition, and Priscilla confirms it is only a minor wound. Still, she remains displeased that her brother was injured at all. Priscilla summons Knox. She orders him to interrogate the bandit leader in the dungeon. She stresses that the prisoner must stay alive since Ryan has more questions. Following morning, Armando appears in Ryan's office to swear allegiance. Ryan laughs and reminds him that he once claimed he would die before serving a noble. Armando is astonished that the man, whom he has just pledged loyalty, is acting so foolish in front of him. Even so, Armando's loyalty leaps from 32 to 95, much to Ryan's satisfaction. Ryan realizes he has finally secured Armando and plans to put his skills to full use in the factory. Armando tells him to quit joking and focus, asking what task he is being assigned. Ryan questions whether Armando is ready to officially serve under him. Armando declares he will faithfully follow Ryan as his subordinate. As soon as he says this, the system registers him as Ryan's second acquired talent. Ryan enthusiastically announces that Armando is now the director of the city's workshop. Armando is baffled since he is an alchemist and cannot see how that qualifies him for such a role. Ryan hands him a set of blueprints and tells him to examine them carefully. Explains that once the dam is completed, they will slowly push the city's industrial development forward. After reviewing the designs, Armando is stunned by their brilliance and begins to wonder if Ryan surpasses even his former master in intellect. As they wrap up, Rosalind rushes in announcing that something has happened. Ryan asks what went wrong, and she reports that the bandit leader in the dungeon has been killed, leaving Ryan shocked. Ryan and the women hurry to the dungeon, where the bandit leader's lifeless body lies cold. He asks Rosalind when the death was discovered. She answers that a guard found him while bringing water. Noticing a strange mark on the wall, Ryan asks if anyone recognizes it. Selena uses her magic to analyze and decode the symbol. She informs Ryan that traces of dark magic linger in the set. Rosalind is startled upon hearing that a dark mage may be involved. He urges Ryan to leave immediately, warning that dark mages are vile and their lingering magic could make him ill. Ryan, however, does not take the warning too seriously. Selena agrees with Lee and advises that they exit the dungeon first. She explains that dark mages often lurk in shadows and, though discreet, are extremely dangerous, capable of casting spells that unleash disasters like plagues, which makes Ryan wonder if they are researching bacteria. Selena says the reason behind the bandit's murder is unclear, adding that if it was merely to silence him, they may not be in danger. However, if the dark mage has set sights on Ryan, they must prepare countermeasures immediately. After leaving the dungeon, Ryan goes to the orphanage where the rescued girls are staying. He introduces himself as their rescuer and explains they have two options ahead. One option is to tell him their hometowns so he can send them back to their families. The other is for those without anywhere to return, as he can provide work along with food and shelter in the city, though choosing this means becoming his subjects. Once he finishes explaining, he asks whether anyone remembers where she came from. The room falls into heavy silence, leaving Ryan stunned. He asks again if truly none of them know their place of origin. Furia explains that many of the children were kidnapped when they were very young and have endured constant lies and threats, which likely made them believe that no one would ever truly come to their aid. She tells Ryan that earning their confidence will not happen overnight and will require patience. Ryan confidently declares that such worries are unnecessary because he considers himself an expert at guiding kids. He instructs Lee to head to the kitchen and fetch a large batch of cookies for the children, emphasizing that she should bring plenty. When the treats are served, Ryan proudly announces that these are the finest cookies they will ever taste. He hands one cookie to a young girl and encourages her to sample it. He reassures her that she does not have to finish it if she finds it lacking in sweetness. Girl timidly takes a bite. She chews with visible delight, her reaction quickly drawing the attention of the others. Soon the remaining girls hurry toward the tray to grab cookies for themselves. They eat happily, enjoying the unexpected treat. Ryan then suggests they play a round of truth or dare. One curious girl asks him to explain how the game works. He describes it as an easy game where each person draws a question card and must either answer honestly or complete a light challenge, adding that success earns them another cookie. After several hours, Ryan succeeds in building rapport with most of the children. A girl named Mia speaks up and shares that she comes from a small village called Glen, located east of the city. Ryan gently pats her head and praises her bravery for opening up. He promises to arrange for trusted people to escort her safely back home. Turning to Ayuria, he asks her to organize escorts for any children who remember where they belong. Ryan realizes he will also need someone responsible to care for the remaining kids. However, he decides first to see whether any of the girls possess notable potential, recognizing this as a rare recruitment opportunity. After examining them one by one, he feels disappointed to find they all seem average. Then his attention is drawn to a red-haired girl named Elia whose abilities are astonishingly high. Ryan is stunned because her statistics nearly rival Lee's own. Later, Priscilla summons Knox to question him about the bandit leader's death. Knox insists he did not kill the man and clarifies that he merely subjected him to some dark magic interrogation. When asked if the prisoner revealed anything useful, Knox answers that he did not. He believes the bandit was only a low-ranking member and therefore lacked important information. This puzzles Priscilla, as she cannot understand why someone would bother eliminating a man who knew nothing. Knox speculates that the killing may have been intended to activate something rather than to silence him. He explains that certain dark magic rituals require a corpse as a necessary component. Aware they are facing dangerous forces, Priscilla orders Knox to guarantee Ryan's safety at all costs. Knox nods in agreement and accepts the responsibility. Priscilla begins to feel that her journey has yielded valuable results. Meanwhile, Oscar is amusing himself in his bedroom when an attendant interrupts to inform him that a distinguished visitor has arrived. Annoyed at being disturbed during his leisure, Oscar demands to know the identity of the guest. The attendant reveals it is Eldrick, who claims to have urgent matters to discuss. Hearing Eldrick's name, Oscar immediately assumes he has brought him another special present. He orders the attendant to escort Eldrick to his study and says he will join shortly. His thoughts drift to the girls Eldrick previously delivered, and he eagerly expects another group. Filled with anticipation, he hastens to the study to greet him. Upon arrival, Oscar asks whether Eldrick has personally come to offer him some exceptional merchandise. Instead, Eldrick delivers shocking news. He informs Oscar that he has not brought gifts, but troubling information. Oscar impatiently asks what the bad news is. Eldrick explains that Ryan, the Grand Duke's son, has driven him out of Iceland, adding that Oscar may no longer receive beautiful girls from him. Oscar grows visibly upset upon hearing this revelation. He angrily questions why Edgar would cast him aside after years of loyal service. Eldrick states that Ryan now rules the city, describing him as arrogant and overly sure of himself, convinced he controls every situation. He goes on to confess that he slipped into Iceland the previous night to assassinate the outlaw chief serving Austin. Oscar then questions Eldrick, asking whether Ryan might have uncovered their scheme. Eldrick confirms this suspicion and explains that it is precisely why he dared to come in person to deliver the warning. Oscar follows up by asking whether Ryan intends to take action against him, and Eldrick reminds him that the Empire strictly forbids slave trading across borders. On top of that, Oscar's ideology conflicts with Edgar's, making it likely that the Duke will exploit the tension to retaliate. Inside, Oscar is terrified because he understands that once the Emperor learns the truth, his execution will be inevitable. Clinging to hope, he urgently asks Eldrick if there is any possible solution. Eldrick mentions that before departing Iceland, he heard the dam had been finished and believes this development gives them a strategic chance. Unfamiliar with such a structure, Oscar asks him to clarify what a dam actually is. Eldrick explains that from his understanding, it is a construction that holds back water, and the reservoir behind it could easily inundate the city's lower quarters. Eldrick proposes sabotaging the dam to trigger a catastrophe that would wipe out the city and its residents. In the chaos, Oscar could march in with troops and claim control, eliminating their troubles in one stroke. Oscar is stunned and asks if Eldrick is suggesting they assassinate the Grand Duke's heir. He objects, arguing that if the Grand Duke discovers their involvement, they will not survive the consequences. Eldrick counters that Oscar's fate is sealed regardless if Ryan exposes him to the Emperor. He insists the Grand Duke will have no grounds to accuse them if Ryan's death appears to result from structural failure, especially since few understand how the dam truly works. Tempts Oscar further by promising access to countless beauties once the city falls under his control. After hearing that enticing detail, Oscar finally consents to move forward with the scheme. 3 days later, Ryan welcomes Ilya into his office. He is puzzled that she has remained silent for several days. He even offers her cookies, hoping to coax a response, but she stays completely quiet. Ryan wonders what kind of ordeal the child endured to leave her so withdrawn and unresponsive. As he considers his options, Lillian suddenly bursts into the room to announce that construction of the dam has been completed. Ryan brightens at the news, relieved to finally receive something positive. He instructs Lee to gather the city's elves and nobles to witness the inauguration, eager to demonstrate that a new chapter has begun. Turning back to Ilya, he asks whether she would like to accompany him to the ceremony. He promises a festive atmosphere filled with food and drinks, along with many children her age attending. He tries to make it sound inviting and fun. Despite his efforts, she remains silent, so Ryan decides to let her stay in the office. He reassures her that attendants will be nearby if she needs anything, and tells her she can change her mind and join simply by informing the maids. Upon reaching the dam, the elderly Elven Queen voices her skepticism about how sturdy the structure truly is. He warns Ryan that elves would stand no chance against a sudden flood should something malfunction. Ryan calmly tells her there is no cause for concern because he oversaw every stage to ensure it was properly executed. He informs her that she is about to witness genuine might. Selena arrives shortly after, reporting that all of Ryan's instructions have been carried out. She explains that 3 massive stone barriers have been installed at the outlet to absorb the force of the water. Additionally, an iron gear mechanism has been implemented to manage the current and avoid any sudden surge. Ryan is pleased by this confirmation. He announces to the assembled guests that they will have the honor of initiating the first release of water. The Elven Queen still looks uneasy and points out the enormous volume of water behind the barrier, warning that even a small miscalculation could devastate the fields below. Scylla also voices her worry, questioning whether opening such gigantic gates is truly safe. She reminds her brother that they cannot recklessly endanger innocent lives. Ryan reassures them once more that the stored water poses no danger, explaining that the design has been tested repeatedly and that he personally supervised each safety measure. He adds that the current will be guided smoothly downstream, providing proper irrigation to the farmland. Ryan declares that they are about to witness something extraordinary and need not fear. Women step forward beside Ryan to activate the mechanism. Just as they prepare to proceed, Eldrick appears overhead. He arrives wearing his trademark irritating grin. Elven Queen looks confused, and Priscilla explains that Eldrick once ruled the city, but revolted and was expelled by Ryan. Ryan is taken aback that Eldrick would dare show up at the dam's inauguration. He demands to know Eldrick's purpose for being there. Eldrick proudly announces that he has pledged himself to the Orvis Empire and gained noble status. Ryan responds with a smile, sarcastically asking if he has come to surrender after being mistreated by the Empire. Eldrick replies with a cold grin that he has come to settle the score. Ryan laughs mockingly, questioning whether Eldrick has lost his senses by seeking revenge alone. Eldrick answers with confidence that he is not by himself. He reveals that several formidable mages are stationed upstream, ready to unleash powerful water magic. He boasts that with the river's flow amplifying their spell, the surge will crash down and shatter the dam Ryan prides himself on. He claims that once the structure collapses, the city and its inhabitants will be doomed. The Elven Queen panics upon hearing this. Priscilla is also shaken and issues a stern warning to Eldrick. He vows that if he destroys everything, she will hunt him relentlessly across the world. Eldrick bursts into laughter, savoring their visible distress. He then channels his magic into the river, unleashing immense force. A violent torrent surges toward the dam. The Elven Queen grows frantic and urges everyone to retreat as the situation worsens. Ryan calmly tells her to remain composed, insisting that no matter how much power Eldrick releases, the dam will endure. He reminds her that every precaution has already been taken to guarantee success. Therefore, he is certain that regardless of how terrifying the flood appears, the structure will not fall. Ryan activates the mechanism, unleashing a massive cascade of water. Eldrick laughs scornfully, claiming the dam cannot survive even a single assault. The Elven Queen begins to believe him and urges immediate retreat, before the flood consumes them. Priscilla also pleads with Ryan to withdraw, yet Ryan stands firm, stating that the volume of water is insufficient to topple his creation. He even provokes Eldrick, asking if that is truly the extent of his strength. Eager to prove himself, Eldrick pours even more magical energy into the river. The torrent intensifies dramatically until the stone slab below begins to fracture. Elven Queen prepares to flee, but Ryan assures her it is still too early to panic. Eldrick relentlessly continues his assault, determined to see Ryan fail. Suddenly, the overwhelming current shatters the three slabs, leaving the women stunned. As the crowd descends into chaos, Ryan smiles calmly, because events are unfolding exactly as he intended. The gear system beneath the dam shifts direction, and the excess water is redirected through a separate channel. Carries it toward the farmland. The spectators stare in disbelief at this turn of events. Ryan thanks Eldrick mockingly, explaining that he saved him the effort of using mana to irrigate the fields, since Eldrick's attack accomplished it freely. Eldrick is stunned that he has been manipulated. Ryan clarifies that the dam was designed not merely as a barrier, but as a system to harness the river's force to nourish the surrounding farmland. He adds that the stronger the flood, the better the irrigation becomes. Eldrick can hardly accept that his elaborate scheme has backfired. With the plot ruined, Ryan proposes they settle the remaining matters. Instead, Eldrick chooses to retreat, warning Ryan that their paths will cross again. Ryan laughs at the threat and reminds him that his city is no amusement ground where he can casually come and go. Ryan immediately instructs Selena to pursue Eldrick without delay. Selena complies eagerly and summons an enormous bolt of lightning. He hurls the lightning straight at Eldrick. The strike knocks him flat in an instant. With Eldrick no longer a threat, Ryan shifts his focus to discussing the investment proposal with the women. The Elven Queen confesses that the dam has completely changed her perspective, and Priscilla asks how he expects them to fund the project. Ryan explains that while the dam eliminated constant flooding, true greatness requires economic growth and long-term prosperity. Queen wonders if he plans to establish trade caravans to accomplish this. Ryan shakes his head and clarifies that his aim is to profit from the caravans rather than create them. Priscilla guesses that he intends to increase toll fees, warning that such a move would anger traveling merchants. Ryan responds that her assumption is incorrect. He unveils his idea of constructing a dedicated hub where caravans can rest and conveniently spend their money within the city. Ryan leads them to the main road, connecting the city to the border fortress. Pointing at the ruins of a former casino, he remarks that the location is ideal for his intended development. He insists that once a proper service hub is built there, caravans will naturally stop and contribute economically. The Queen notes the site's dilapidated state and questions why this venture would succeed when the casino failed. What she does not know is that Ryan himself ordered the casino's demolition, a fact he cannot reveal. Instead, Ryan blames the casino's collapse on poor management by its former owner. He expresses confidence that under proper leadership, the outcome will be entirely different. Curious, the Queen asks him to clarify what exactly he means by a service hub. Ryan describes it as a multifunctional complex and presents detailed plans to illustrate his vision. He explains it will include lodging, shops, stables, and various amenities tailored specifically for merchants and travelers. Essentially, it will function as a commercial center combining rest, trade, supplies, and communication services. Queen concedes that his concept is impressive and well thought out. Ryan elaborates that trade between the city and the border fortress is already active, and caravans pass through daily in large numbers. And once the hub is operational, it will attract nearby residents as well, boosting spending, encouraging investment, and stimulating the growth of related industries. After hearing the explanation, the Queen asks what benefits the elves will receive, since the proposal appears to favor humans. Ryan confidently declares that the area will become a central grain distribution point, meaning the elven population will no longer fear food scarcity. The Queen's expression brightens immediately at the promise. Ryan continues by noting that multiple caravans will arrive at the hub each day. This steady flow will allow the elves to secure abundant food and agricultural goods. Concludes that such stability will usher in a prosperous era for the elven race. After enduring his lengthy explanation, the Queen states that she is prepared to place her trust in his proposal, pledges that if the road truly ensures lasting abundance, the elves will back him wholeheartedly. Relieved, Ryan asks how much she is prepared to contribute initially. She proposes an initial investment of 150,000 gold coins and promises additional funds if the returns prove worthwhile. Ryan is stunned by the sheer amount and finally grasps the scale of true wealth, realizing he has secured a major financial supporter. Queen adds that she will dispatch her own representatives to oversee the project. Ryan reassures her that he will personally supervise construction to guarantee top-quality standards. After the discussion concludes, Ryan eagerly informs Lee that negotiations were successful. Lee credits the achievement to his intelligence and determination. Ryan notes that while funding is settled, issues like financial oversight remain unresolved, and he instructs Lee to summon Selena. Shortly afterward, Selena arrives. Ryan asks whether she understands the concept of cooking the books, but she looks utterly confused. She admits her expertise lies solely in magic and curses, leaving accounting far beyond her abilities. Ryan then turns to Armando for insight, but he is equally clueless. Armando mentions he is still struggling with another assignment Ryan previously gave him. Ryan nearly collapses at the realization that his brightest aides know nothing about financial manipulation. He briefly considers pouring all funds into construction, but abandons the idea, deciding some reserves must be kept for emergencies. He proposes seeking Priscilla's assistance, since the matter relates to economics. She points out that Priscilla's territory is home to many skilled merchants who likely understand such practices. Ryan refuses, insisting the task must be entrusted only to someone he fully trusts and kept as confidential as possible. Running out of options, he orders every merchant in the city to be gathered before him. At the same time, Wilvinia arrives in the city. Her mission is to persuade Ryan to free Castile in order to save her father's life. Upon entering, Wilvinia notices an unusual crowd forming. She asks a passerby what the commotion is about. The man explains that Ryan is hosting an accounting examination. He adds that many are excited to participate, though Wilvinia asks what such an exam entails. The man admits ignorance but says Ryan promised employment and one granted wish to whoever passes. During this, Wilvinia becomes intrigued, realizing success might allow her to demand Castile's release. Participants hurry to their assigned seats for the test. Ryan personally oversees the examination process. He designed the test specifically to identify talent for managing the service hub's finances. He believes presenting nearly impossible questions will reveal true capability. Ryan envisions a prosperous future for his city. An examiner rushes over to inform him that someone has already finished. The candidate turns out to be the brothel's manager. Ryan initially feels hopeful upon hearing this. His optimism quickly evaporates when he discovers the exam sheet is completely blank, with no answers provided. The man claims he could not comprehend any of the questions. Ryan demands to know why he attempted the exam without understanding its content. The man argues that terms like balance sheet, depreciation, and amortization were far beyond his comprehension. Ryan is exasperated that no one grasps the subtle art of manipulating financial records to conceal losses or mislead others. And after reprimanding the incompetent candidate, another examiner presents a seemingly promising submission. The response merely offers Ryan the man's 8-year-old daughter in marriage, prompting Ryan to consider severe punishment for such absurdity. Ryan clutches his head in sheer frustration. The surrounding crowd notices his distress. Wilvinia observes it as well. She decides to participate and approaches a guard, who inquires about her identity. He claims to be a traveler and politely requests a test paper, since all non-elves may attempt the exam. The guard allows her to try, but warns that no one has answered more than 2 questions. Wilvinia takes her seat and begins reading. She is nearly overwhelmed, realizing that Ryan seeks someone capable of falsifying financial records. He concludes he resembles the corrupt officials back home. Nevertheless, she understands that solving the problems could give her leverage over him. She suppresses her pride, prioritizing her father's survival above all else. Ryan is already stretched to his limit when Wilvinia hands in her completed paper. Upon reviewing it, Ryan is utterly astonished. He reluctantly admits that she possesses extraordinary talent. Her performance exceeds his expectations, though he realizes her name is unfamiliar. He asks about her origins. Wilvinia states that she hails from the Orvis Empire. At once the guards move to apprehend her. Ryan quickly intervenes and orders them to stand down. He questions Wilvinia about her purpose for coming to Iceland. Wilvinia calmly answers that her visit is meant for negotiations. This statement instantly piques Ryan's interest. Ryan escorts Wilvinia to his private office. There he tells her that her test responses impressed him greatly. He inquires whether she serves as a financial strategist for the Orvis Empire. She denies it, explaining that her financial knowledge is only modest. Even so, Ryan remains impressed by the depth and precision of her answers. Curious, he evaluates her abilities more closely and is astonished to discover her exceptional talent in mathematics, realizing she is exactly the kind of genius he needs and must somehow retain. Ryan then asks what the Empire seeks from him, since she claims to be negotiating. Wilvinia admits honestly that she has come to request Castile's release on behalf of the Empire. In return, the Empire is prepared to offer a substantial financial reward. The proposal captures Ryan's attention. However, he informs her that money does not interest him. She is startled by this response and begins suspecting that he might desire territory instead. Wilvinia asks what terms he would set for Castile's freedom. Without hesitation, Ryan gestures toward her and asks if she would consider serving as his retainer. The suggestion leaves Wilvinia stunned. Ryan explains that his request is reasonable and that her value far exceeds Castile's in his eyes. She struggles to believe he is serious about offering her such a position, thinking it almost absurd. Wilvinia demands to know if he is mocking her, as she is a noble of Orvis and cannot kneel before a rival nation. Ryan assures her he is entirely serious and unwilling to waste someone of her remarkable ability. She remains conflicted, unsure whether to trust him, yet fears that refusing might jeopardize Castile's release. She asks directly if he would reject her request should she decline his offer. Ryan smiles and assures her that he would not. This answer catches her off guard since she expected harsher conditions. Ryan explains that her assistance solved a significant issue for him, and there are still matters worth discussing. He emphasizes that talented individuals like her are essential to transforming the city into a thriving powerhouse. Lowering her head, Wilvinia admits the offer is tempting, but impossible for her to accept. Ryan questions whether outdated imperial pride is holding her back. She reveals that her father remains imprisoned in Orvis, and she must use Castile as leverage to secure his freedom. Ryan understands her predicament and considers that persuasion through other means might eventually sway her. Wilvinia reminds him of his promise to grant a wish to anyone who passed the exam and hopes he will honor it. Ryan responds with a faint smile. He orders a guard to release Castile from the dungeon, so Wilvinia may escort him home. Wilvinia feels immense relief and expresses gratitude for his generosity. Soon after, she and Castile depart toward Orvis under the protection of Ryan's soldiers. Inside the carriage, Castile fumes with humiliation and resentment toward Ryan, vows to seek revenge for the insult. Wilvinia is incredulous that he still dreams of vengeance after suffering defeat. Before long, he begins grumbling about the rough ride. Wilvinia points out that the uneven road, not the carriage, is to blame. Castile erupts, claiming his status as Grand Duke entitles him to luxury and threatening to accuse her before the Emperor upon their return. Inwardly, Wilvinia curses his arrogance and suspects the Emperor may discipline him anyway. Shortly afterward, the guards inform Wilvinia of a nearby stream and suggest stopping to rest. She agrees, recognizing the dangers of traveling at night. They make camp beside the water. Wilvinia cannot stop thinking about Ryan's unexpected proposal and struggles to accept that he truly wanted her service. At that moment, Castile notices one of the maids. His attention shifts instantly and he seizes her, demanding she entertain him. Terrified maid begs him to release her. Angered by her refusal, Castile lashes out. He strikes her across the face in fury. Disgusted, Wilvinia rebukes him and urges him to act with dignity befitting his rank. Castile dismisses her harshly, telling her to mind her own business. Suddenly, an assassin sent by the Emperor appears without warning. Blade plunges into Castile's chest before he can react. Wilvinia trembles in shock as sweat beads across her skin. The assassin turns his cold gaze toward her, declaring that she will be next. Wilvinia and the maid flee in panic. They alert the soldiers that an attack is underway. The escort commander is stunned that anyone would dare target a Grand Duke and orders heightened vigilance. The assassin reappears, mocking them for clustering together. He intends to eliminate them all in one strike. Commander demands his surrender, claiming they have him surrounded. The assassin laughs, insisting that they are the ones encircled. With a sharp whistle from his lips, hidden Orvis troops emerge from concealment. Wilvinia is horrified to see Imperial soldiers lurking in the forest. The escort leader realizes the assassin is collaborating with Orvis forces. The assassin smugly reveals the truth, since none of them will survive. He explains that the Emperor desires war and plans to use their deaths as justification. The massacre will provide the excuse needed to invade Iceland. Wilvinia struggles to accept this revelation, but the assassin insists it is reality. Commands his troops to eliminate Wilvinia and the escorts. Shaking with fear, Wilvinia regrets stepping into political affairs her father once warned her about. She recalls his constant caution against involvement in power struggles. Now she understands his concern, realizing her gentle nature is ill-suited for such ruthlessness. Just as death seems inevitable, Ryan's voice resounds through the forest. His forces emerge from the shadows alongside him. Ryan expresses displeasure that the Empire dared to trespass and commit murder on his land. Orvis soldiers panic, having believed the area was secure after scouting. Ryan ridicules their crude and predictable tactics. Wilvinia is stunned by his sudden appearance and questions why he came. Ryan asks whether she truly believed the Emperor would allow Castile to return unharmed. He is shocked and asks if he anticipated this betrayal, and he confirms it, saying she would have died before reaching Orvis. She demands to know how he was so certain. Ryan explains that the Empire planned to exploit her death as a pretext for war, and admits he does not entirely oppose conflict. Assassin attempts bravado, urging his men to kill Ryan and plunge the city into chaos. The soldiers charge toward Ryan's forces. Ryan calmly orders Rosalind to eradicate the invaders. Rosalind descends onto the battlefield from above. She unleashes her overwhelming presence, demonstrating her dominance to the enemy ranks. Brutal clash erupts between both sides, yet Rosalind clearly surpasses them all. She tears through the battlefield with devastating efficiency. The enemy troops tremble in terror as she fights like a relentless force of nature, realizing they stand no chance against her overwhelming strength. The assassin rallies his troops, insisting that Rosalind is only one fighter and can be overwhelmed. Amused by his bravado, Rosalind shifts her focus directly onto him. She nearly crushes his skull with her spear, but he barely dodges and manages to parry the blow. At the same time, another soldier attempts to ambush her from behind. Rosalind instantly disables him, leaving him maimed without hesitation. She pivots back to the assassin and drives a devastating kick into him, forcing him to stumble backward. He gasps and coughs, clearly drained. Rosalind coldly advises him to surrender if he values his life. The assassin defiantly claims he feels no fear, prompting her to demonstrate why he should. He lunges forward with lightning speed, far too fast for him to respond in time. Her weapon slashes into his shoulder. The impact forces him down onto his knees. Witnessing this, the enemy troops realize they are hopelessly outmatched. Even the assassin now understands that her power exceeds anything he anticipated. Watching from behind, Ryan is impressed and imagines how unstoppable she would be equipped with advanced weaponry. Rosalind commands the remaining soldiers to throw down their arms or face death. Terrified, they comply and beg for mercy. The assassin tries to incite them to keep fighting. Yet survival proves more important than loyalty. Rosalind reports to Ryan that every hostile soldier has been secured. Pleased, Ryan praises her exceptional performance. The captured assassin is brought before Ryan, who unexpectedly orders his release. The assassin challenges Ryan to execute him, refusing to plead for mercy. Ryan merely smiles and assures him death is not his intention. Startled, the assassin listens, as Ryan explains he needs him alive to deliver a message. The assassin asks who the intended recipient is. Ryan answers that the message is meant for the Emperor of Orvis. The assassin is stunned, trying to comprehend Ryan's strategy. Ryan remarks that if the Emperor desires war, he is prepared to oblige. He instructs the assassin to report that Ryan betrayed the alliance and murdered Wilvinia during her return journey. In other words, Ryan wants the blame placed entirely on himself. He intends to demonstrate why provoking him is a grave mistake. Ryan then tells Wilvinia she will accompany him back to the city, since the Empire had already plotted her death. Before departing, the assassin warns Ryan he will regret sparing him. After the assassin disappears, Wilvinia asks whether he fears a massive retaliation from the Empire. Ryan replies that he would be more disappointed if their army failed to appear, admitting that what he seeks can only be obtained from them. Wilvinia presses him to clarify his meaning. With a grin, Ryan reveals he desires the territory of the Orvis Empire. He orders Rosalind to escort the prisoners back and convert them into laborers, satisfied to have gained much-needed manpower. Later, Ryan walks Wilvinia through the dim corridors of his castle. She assumes he intends to confine her in the dungeon. Instead, he surprises her, stating he has no intention of imprisoning her. He brings her into a room dedicated to calculations, where Selena looks utterly overwhelmed, struggling to comprehend the abacus, until Ryan announces their problem solver has arrived. Wilvinia is astonished by the sheer number of manipulated accounts before her. Ryan explains that the Elven Queen expects a financial report in 3 days, and asks Wilvinia to arrange the books while concealing sensitive details. Few days pass before Wilvinia returns. Exhausted and sleep-deprived, she presents the completed ledgers. Ryan reviews them carefully and applauds her excellent work. Relieved by his approval, she admits she is simply trying to stay alive. Ryan reassures her he has no plan to harm her, especially after personally bringing her back. Then asks what compensation she desires for her assistance. Wilvinia hesitates, saying her wish may be beyond his capability. Ryan guesses with a smile that she wants her father rescued. He is speechless, wondering how he deduced her thoughts so easily. Ryan explains that human emotions are transparent to him. She asks if he truly has the power to save her father. Ryan confidently states there is no agreement he cannot secure. Hearing this, Wilvinia begins to believe he may be trustworthy. Still, she feels rescuing her father is too grand a reward for mere falsified accounts. She asks what further obligations he expects, and he admires her intelligence. He reminds her she has already been adjusting the records for him, and requests that she continue in that role. Additionally, he reiterates his wish for her to serve as his retainer. Wilvinia is taken aback, suspecting he cannot be serious. Ryan clarifies he despises unnecessary risk and would not rescue her father only to let her return as a potential enemy, making it clear that saving him requires her allegiance. She is torn, aware this would mean betraying her homeland. refusal could condemn her father to rot in prison. Ryan senses her hesitation and tells her there is no need for an immediate answer. Noting her exhaustion from sleepless nights, he advises her to rest before deciding carefully. He then instructs Lee that they should inspect the construction site. Upon arrival, the site supervisor greets him and offers a tour of the progress. Ryan is pleased with the steady advancement, aided by the additional prisoner workforce. He notices a foreman violently striking a captive laborer. The supervisor explains the man lost family during a past Orvis invasion and harbors deep resentment. The supervisor offers to intervene, but Ryan halts him, surprising him. Ryan remarks that Orvis soldiers showed no mercy to civilians, so leniency is unnecessary. He states he does not care about the methods used as long as no prisoner dies before the project is completed. The supervisor promises strict oversight to ensure completion without fatalities. Ryan inquires about their daily schedule and rations, learning they work 8 hours and eat 3 meals. Since autumn has arrived, he orders 2 additional work hours added to their day. Later, Ryan meets the Elven Queen to present the financial records. She reviews them and senses inconsistencies, but cannot pinpoint any flaws. She asks directly if there are hidden issues. Ryan assures her the figures were prepared with utmost care. Trusting him, she expresses hope he will not disappoint her. Satisfied overall with the report, she hands over the promised 150,000 gold coins and urges swift completion of the service hub. Ryan promises she will soon witness a flourishing trade center. Queen then inquires about tensions with the Empire and whether conflict might threaten their partnership. Ryan assures her she need not worry. He hints that he has prepared a spectacle for Orvis and that all will ultimately profit from his plans. Shortly thereafter, the Emperor convenes his officials with news that Castile perished en route back to the Empire. Court is stunned by the shocking announcement. The Emperor unveils a letter, stained with blood, that his spy had delivered. He orders an attendant to read its contents aloud to the court. The message claims that Ryan conspired with Wilvinia to murder Castile and his escorts in the forest. Feigning outrage, the Emperor performs his anger convincingly before the officials. His display quickly stirs fury among the court as well. He then turns to Craven, reminding everyone that he was the one who proposed peace talks with Iceland City. Pointing out that the Grand Duke is dead, he demands Craven explain himself. Craven realizes he has been cornered by the Emperor's cunning maneuver. He knows he was the one who encouraged Castile to send troops under false pretenses. Now he fumes as the Emperor shifts all responsibility onto him. With no escape, Craven kneels and declares he will shoulder the blame. The Emperor approaches him slowly, asks how he intends to make amends. Craven shouts that he wishes to command the assault on Iceland City. He vows to cleanse the Empire's disgrace with the blood of Wilvinia and Ryan. Smiling, the Emperor grants him the chance to redeem himself through action. He commands the Western Legion, the Silver Wolf Knights, and the Crimson Flame mages to mobilize and march on Iceland City. The officials cheer enthusiastically in support of the city's destruction. The Emperor smirks darkly, mocking Ryan as a foolish boy who handed him a reason for war. At the same time, Ryan sits calmly by his window, proudly observing the transformation unfolding within his city. He anticipates that refugees from Orvis will flood in due to the war, solving his workforce shortage. Moreover, victory would allow him to seize the territory he truly desires. Soon, Rosalind reports that the first wave of border refugees has been settled in the service area, with supplies being distributed. Ryan is impressed by the influx of roughly 3,000 newcomers. Among them are about 800 able-bodied men and approximately 1,400 women. Ryan remarks that labor shortages will soon be a thing of the past. He instructs Rosalind to provide extra rations, since elf funding left them financially comfortable. He also orders notices posted announcing 3 years of tax exemption and free housing, aiming to attract more border residents with the elves' generous funds. Lee informs him that Wilvinia requests an audience. He allows her to enter. Wilvinia immediately criticizes him for releasing the assassin, warning that the Empire is now sending a massive force and suggesting she return to prevent war. Ryan replies that while her idea is thoughtful, it will fail, assuring her he has prepared thoroughly. Wilvinia argues passionately that countless innocents will perish. She demands to know if he truly accepts war for personal ambition. Ryan is surprised by her concern for commoners and calls her kind-hearted. She accuses him of mockery, declaring she despises war, and he answers that he does as well. Her astonishment is evident. Ryan clarifies that what he hates most are those who ignite conflicts, yet he believes fighting is unavoidable for survival. Wilvinia listens with curiosity. Ryan explains that unless he inspires fear, war will never cease. He states bluntly that force, not persuasion, ends wars. He reveals he does not intend to confront the Empire directly. Instead, he has crafted a deadly trap to swallow them whole. Ryan gently pats Wilvinia's shoulder, promising she will reunite with her father soon. He is stunned and wonders what scheme he is plotting. Later, Ryan inspects preparations beyond the city walls. Rosalind questions why traps are dug inside the moat, and Ryan explains he wants the enemy to breach the walls, hinting at a larger strategy. He reminds her of the forbidden spell used to annihilate Castile's troops. Rosalind connects it to the oil barrels and seeks confirmation. Ryan confirms that the barrels embody that destructive spell. Shocked, she asks if oil alone grants such devastating power. Ryan assures her that ignited barrels will erupt violently. He then instructs Rosalind that when the Imperial forces arrive, she must not achieve total victory. Confused, she argues this is their chance to crush the enemy at the border. Ryan smiles, calling her perspective naive. He explains his goal is not immediate destruction, but fostering enemy arrogance. He wants them convinced the city is barely holding on. Their overconfidence will lead them straight into the traps prepared for them. Rosalind asks if he intends to feign weakness deliberately. Ryan confirms and orders her to confront the vanguard soon, but avoid decisive victory. She must neither dominate nor collapse entirely. Instead, she should create the illusion of fragile defenses. Rosalind realizes he plans to lure them toward the buried oil drums. She agrees enthusiastically to execute the strategy. Ryan leaves further planning to her and goes to inspect Armando's progress. He promises that once the war ends, the rules of battle will change forever. In the forge, Armando debates heatedly with Bram over Ryan's blueprint. Bram insists the barrel walls are too thin for the intended purpose. Armando defends the exact specifications Ryan provided. Bram argues the proportions are flawed, claiming the tube cannot endure the explosive force. Their dispute pauses as Ryan enters and questions the argument. Armando explains Bram doubts the design and fears the barrel will burst. Bram admits he respects Ryan's furnace, but questions this weapon's practicality. He insists the thin pipe will fail under pressure. Ryan calmly agrees that improperly made pipes can explode. Bram triumphantly declares his skepticism justified. Ryan clarifies that correct adherence to design eliminates danger. He explains the firearm's structure results from careful calculations and controlled powder use, promising immense but stable power. Bram doubts such a small tube can produce the claimed strength. Ryan assures him that at 50 meters, it can pierce heavy cavalry armor. Dwarves laugh, assuming exaggeration. Ryan challenges them to craft a single prototype, following his design precisely. Bram agrees, eager to test whether the blueprint proves true. He is curious whether Ryan's ideas can overturn their long-held beliefs. Soon the dwarves complete the weapon. Ryan inspects it and praises the flawless craftsmanship. Bram demands a demonstration, and Ryan suggests testing it outside. Though Armando worries about safety, Ryan assures him the design guarantees controlled firing. Outside, they set up a knight's breastplate as a target. Ryan pulls the trigger. The projectile blasts through the armor with staggering force. Dwarves stare in disbelief at the weapon's destructive capability. Bram trembles, realizing it can pierce even the finest plate armor. He concludes this invention could reshape warfare entirely and end the age of knights. Ryan asks calmly if he is now convinced. Bram kneels in loyalty, pledging that he and his fellow dwarves will serve Ryan faithfully and forge unmatched weapons under his guidance. Remaining dwarves freeze in disbelief at the sight of their leader kneeling, demanding an explanation for why he is bowing before Ryan. Bram shoots them a look of utter contempt and snaps at them to be silent. He challenges them by asking whether they truly believe their bodies could endure the force of that firearm. Only then do the dwarves realize they hold no advantage in this situation. Without hesitation, they drop to their knees as well and swear loyalty to Ryan. However, Ryan corrects them calmly, explaining they have misunderstood because he has no interest in empty pledges of loyalty. Bram looks confused and asks Ryan to clarify his meaning. Ryan explains that in this world, words and vows are fragile things, and in his view, tangible benefits outweigh any promise. At that moment, Bram finally grasps what Ryan is truly after. He bows deeply and assures Ryan that the blueprints will remain confidential, and that betrayal will never cross their minds. Though relieved, Ryan tells him to save the oaths for later. What he truly requires is large-scale production of firearms to prepare for the looming conflict. Bram promptly accepts the command without hesitation. Soon after, Craven arrives outside the city with the Imperial forces. He selects a hill that offers a clear view of the city and orders his soldiers to establish camp there. A commander questions why they are not advancing immediately, pointing out that the city appears no match for their strength. The captain echoes this sentiment, suggesting caution is unnecessary given their overwhelming power. Craven is stunned by what he considers their foolishness. He reminds them of Castile's final message, which claimed that Ryan had deployed a forbidden spell during their clash. Commanders dismiss the claim with laughter, insisting it is impossible for Ryan to harbor a mage of such forbidden rank. They speculate that Castile invented the story to excuse his defeat, yet Craven inwardly believes the warning was genuine and suspects a forbidden-level mage truly resides within the city. orders them to cease their objections, and announces his plan to meet Ryan the following day, accompanied by a representative from the Mage Guild. Shocked, one commander asks whether Craven intends to negotiate peace. Craven clarifies that he seeks confirmation about the alleged forbidden mage. If such power exists, they must proceed carefully since the outcome of any battle would be uncertain. He further reminds them that their mission is to suppress rebellion, not wage invasion, and legitimacy is essential. He warns them to act properly or face consequences. Seeing his seriousness, they promise to conduct themselves respectfully. Before long, Ryan receives word that Craven wishes to meet him and has brought mages to verify rumors of a forbidden spellcaster. Ryan finds this amusing and remarks that the Empire clearly has capable minds. He instructs his guards to grant them entry. Shortly thereafter, Craven and the guild mage step into Ryan's office for discussion. Ryan asks Craven why he sought an audience before hostilities had begun. Craven raises concerns regarding the forbidden magic reportedly used against Castile. The accompanying mage states bluntly that they expect Ryan's cooperation in their inquiry, or there will be consequences. Rosalind bristles at the tone and rebukes the mage for his disrespect toward Ryan. The mage replies arrogantly that the Mage Guild does not adhere to the ornate etiquette of noble courts. He declares he will only bow to Ryan if Ryan can demonstrate superior intellect. Rosalind challenges him, asking how Ryan is supposed to prove such a thing. The mage responds that he has a straightforward test. He produces a tangram puzzle from his belongings, announces that if anyone present can solve it, he will kneel before Ryan without hesitation. Ryan is startled by the sight, recognizing it as a simple children's toy from his previous life, and feels disappointed that a mage's intellect is judged by such a trivial object. Selena immediately recognizes the puzzle as well. She explains it is commonly used in advancement exams for mages, and that the pieces can form countless configurations. In rare instances, however, the pieces fit perfectly back into the frame. She notes that the challenge measures exceptional spatial awareness and logical reasoning. The Imperial Mage nods confidently, adding that even seasoned mages require significant time to complete it. He boasts that it personally took him an entire month to solve. He tells Ryan that success will earn his immediate bow. Ryan looks unimpressed, astonished that someone needed a month to master what he considers a preschool toy. Selena volunteers to attempt it, recalling that she solved a similar puzzle during her high-level examination. She takes the pieces in hand. After numerous attempts, she is unable to complete the arrangement. She lowers her head and apologizes to Ryan for her failure. Seizing the moment, the Imperial Mage mocks her, claiming her comprehension is too shallow for further advancement. He derides the entire city as foolish and insists that such incompetence proves no forbidden mage could exist there. The guards bristle with anger and reprimand him for insulting their lord so brazenly. Mage shrugs off their anger, stating that Ryan is merely another noble. He turns as if to depart. Ryan calls out to stop him. He calmly states that the mage is mistaken, because someone present can indeed solve it. The mage demands to know who that person might be. Ryan smiles faintly and declares that he himself will complete the puzzle. Mage erupts into loud laughter at the claim, reminds everyone that Ryan once failed even the junior mage examination, branding him a pampered aristocrat with no hope of solving it. Ryan responds lightly that he failed because the exam questions were beneath his interest. The mage challenges him to prove it by solving the puzzle. Ryan proposes adding a wager to make things interesting. Curious, the mage asks what the terms would be. Ryan declares that if he completes it within 30 seconds, the mage must kneel and apologize to Selena. Selena is taken aback by Ryan defending her so openly. Ryan reminds her firmly that as his subordinate, only he has the right to chastise her. The mage agrees but counters that if Ryan fails, he must kneel and apologize in return. Ryan accepts without hesitation and picks up the pieces. True to his word, he assembles the puzzle flawlessly in half a minute. The mage stands frozen in disbelief. He refuses to accept what he sees, recalling that it once took him an entire month. Ryan reminds him calmly of the wager they made. The mage protests that it was merely luck and should not count as genuine ability. Ryan replies that luck or not, the puzzle has been completed and that is what matters. He steps closer and informs the mage he now has two options. He can kneel respectfully and apologize to Selena, or allow Rosalind to remove his head on the spot. Rosalind drives her sword into the floor to demonstrate her resolve. Craven interjects, reminding the mage that the bet was public and reneging would be disgraceful. He adds that such behavior would tarnish the reputation of the Mage Guild. The mage stammers excuses, saying he never imagined anyone could solve it. Craven asks whether he intends to honor his promise or force him to report his misconduct to the guild. Realizing he is cornered with no escape, he slowly drops to his knees and offers Selena a reluctant apology. Inside, he seethes with fury and vows to make Ryan pay for this humiliation. Craven, however, concludes that Ryan is far from an ordinary noble and must be handled with caution. With the bet settled, Ryan suggests they finally proceed to discuss the true purpose of their meeting.